Okay, everyone, we got the thumbs up from the boss, so we can move forward. So I'm calling this October 11th meeting of the Expanded Budget Committee to order. We have quorum. Shauna and Henry are attending remotely due to being under the weather. And I guess we will move forward with our first OTR. We have quite a few OTRs. Like, keep the candy bag away from your microphone.
It ended up at this end. What can I say?
And for members of the public who may be viewing this, we couldn't possibly get through this process without a lot of sugar.
And chocolate.
And chocolate. Okay, so I will just issue the usual reminder to please be crisp. And we will move forward with our first OTR of the evening, which is number 318. No, it's not 318. It is 319. It's Rich John's grant writer proposal.
Happy to proceed, but I think we also delayed consideration of an OTR that Shauna had offered regarding the Sheriff's Department. Did you want to?
Yeah, well, that one's on the agenda. We're just following the agenda that you got.
Okay, as long as we didn't.
No, don't worry. We'll get to it.
Yes, thank you. I would move this OTR if, I can't remember if I moved it at our last meeting, with the proviso that you've all received a memo from Lisa Holmes with some amendment to take it into the county administration department and to move it to a consultant for a one-year period, with the idea that this would allow us to proceed faster and to determine whether this is providing value to the county, with the idea that perhaps we would go to a head count in year 2. There's obviously a trade-off there in that you don't have somebody dedicated to it and intimately involved with county operations, but at the same time, you gain speed and you gain hopefully some expertise right off the bat.
And breadth of coverage.
And so I fully support what county administration has proposed here.
So to clarify then, this OTR is for $110,000?
I think we went to 100.
$100,000 then for a consultant.
Yes,
All right,
placed, and it would be managed by county administration.
all right. I see Annie.
I was just wondering if you need a second, but I do have a question.
You can, are you seconding?
Yeah, I was going to second. but
Okay,
I had a
Annie
question.
seconds, and then Annie has a question.
Just wanted to make sure with the two figures that we were, had it down in stone as much as we could at this point. Is it 100 or 100?
100.
100,000. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And I think, I just want to add that I think this is a great idea to take advantage, of all the money that'll be
Hopefully coming to us.
hopefully help get that money towards us. Thank you.
Okay, hands. I have Amanda, I have Dan, I have Mike Sigler, I have Randy and Shauna.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Rich, for bringing this up and Lisa and your team for giving us some more information. I can certainly support this for 1 year. On the paper here, it does say multi-year for 3 years. Are we amending to just 1 year?
Well, it says multi-year because we were talking about hiring, but I think we can change that to one time because we're going with the consultant.
Okay.
So that's a
just one
vestigial.
time. Okay,
Yes.
great, thanks.
Okay, Dan.
I had the same question, thanks.
Okay, Mike?
My question was, you would use the word consultant, but the title says grant writer. I mean, this person is going to be writing grants, right?
Yeah, this has been amended to be a consultant grant writer. So we would not hire a headcount in the county. We would contract for services grant writing.
Their main focus is to write grants.
It would also be monitoring the available grants as they come out, determining applicability to our needs, and then checking with county resources to see if this is something we wanted to apply for, and then writing the grant. Yes, we'd also use them for tracking services, monitoring.
Okay, Randy.
Yeah, thank you. I like the idea of a grant writer. 100,000 seems like a lot of money, but we'll see where that goes. I'm sure you'll get RFPs for that type of thing, right? I think this is a good opportunity for shared service for towns. When they look at shared services, a lot of the towns don't have the ability to research grants or to find or even know how to apply for them. So in the future, if this does go to a 2-year, it might be something to look at. So.
Thank you, Randy. I have Shauna and then Annie again.
Yeah, I just had a question for either Lisa or Katie in regards to hiring of this position. Typically, whenever we are looking for the consultant, is there a certain type of ratio that we would look to get back from our investment? Is it like 2 times or 3 times?
Katie, did you want to take that? I see you came on the screen.
I would say I've never heard there's a ratio like that, but we could certainly track that as part of this pilot to see what that number might be, Shauna.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great just to see like, a return on our investment. And I think it would be pretty easy based on the grants that we might receive. Obviously, if this works and we're successful, that it might be something that we think about expanding, for future years. My other question is, as far as whenever we receive the grant funds, is there typically an amount that we might be able to use from that grant that can actually pay for the consultant?
Yes, it depends on the grant, but that's what they were explaining at NISAC was that you can cover some of your administrative cost out of the grant itself.
And do we think that applies to hiring of consultants, or is it just staff employees?
It would be money for monitoring, tracking the grant, and certainly doing the reports. I don't know if it would be for the actual application.
Okay, thank you.
Annie?
So just thinking, going off what Randy said about rural area, for the different municipalities. And I'm just wondering, I mean, this could be something that, we might want to think about now. Is this something we're looking at just for the county, or is this something that we can also help other municipalities with? And then a second thought is, maybe this is to Katie, with the CLCPA from the state getting ready sometime soon to, to roll out grants, then is this something that the planning department could also use or take advantage of?
I think if this person lives in administration and is a county consultant, they would serve any department that was eligible to pursue a particular grant opportunity, Annie. I don't think it would be just limited to planning, nor would planning be unable to avail itself of the service.
Just thinking as we're
Yeah.
writing or, having the discussion of what they would be doing, is probably better to have it now versus we're asking later. Thank you.
Rich?
I think we need to see if this works. And if it does work, there would be tremendous synergy, I believe, in working with the other municipalities to try to expand the reach of the grants, because they would benefit everybody in the county doing that. But I think that's year 2.
Yeah. Lisa?
I would agree. I would see this as a bit of a learning pilot year in regard to other municipalities, also in regard to what the needs are on the county side, not only for tracking for grants, applying, but also the monitoring and the grant management piece, which I don't think would be as heavy on for a consulting firm. But the goal certainly would be that this more than pay for itself. And also, as we embark upon the county's first strategic operations plan, that we that what we're applying for is in alignment with where we're going organizationally, so that we're not chasing money that is not getting us to where we're looking to go with with our goals. The CLCPA certainly being one of them.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it bears remembering too, that if the county applies for a grant, it serves the interests of everyone in the county. And it may variably affect the city, the town, the rural areas. It just kind of depends on the nature of the grants that are out there and what we qualify for. Okay. Anybody else? We ready to vote on this? Okay, let's do it.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison. Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
14 ayes. Motion passes.
All right, moving right along. The next one is also Rich Johns. It's the Career Pathways Program.
Thank you, Deborah. I would move the OTR for the Career Pathways Program. As you all recall, this is a collaborative venture among a broad range of community groups to try to find employment pathways for, frankly, the hardest to employ, the underemployed and unemployed, particularly people coming out of jail, prison, and recovery. And 2022 was year one. You should have received a report from Aloja Arowele with information about how the first year went. And frankly, it was a learning curve they were on. The immediate or original goal was to reach 50 to 60 individuals, and they did not hit that goal. In fact, it turns out recruiting was one of the more difficult aspects of running career pathways. They did run two cohorts, I believe one was in the neighborhood of 12 and the other was about 8. They have 15 signed up for a third cohort starting this month. So it does seem to be gaining some momentum. They seem to have shared the problem that everybody has experienced with the pandemic of finding people who are interested in work. With that said, the 2022 allowed them to build a structure. So this is a true collaboration among a lot of community agencies, and you should have received letters of support from those organizations. I believe this is worth funding for one more year. That's why I put it in as one time, to really give them a chance to prove whether this is the model that we want to use. And perhaps it isn't, but if it isn't this, we really do need some effort to provide an employment opportunity for these hardest to employ. I feel that there's real enthusiasm. I've been attending the monthly meetings and there's real engagement, participation among these agencies, and a lot of innovative thinking about how do you recruit, how do you get people on board and make it work. I'd like to give them another chance to see this through. You know, a year from now, if we're not seeing the numbers, I would certainly say, let's refigure this and try something else. But I believe this deserves a chance. So I move it.
Do I have a second? Veronica, thank you. Comments, questions? Oh, come on. Amanda.
So we funded this last year through, I couldn't remember, through the
CCE.
through CCE, not through a separate OTR, or?
It was an OTR, but the funding went through CCE, but it spreads out to OAR, URO, BOCES, TC3 now, College Initiative Upstate, and I know I'm forgetting several. other organizations. There's also the connection to the city electrification project. So.
And I guess then my follow-up then is like, did this go through CCE in discussion, or did it come up in your conversations with CCE, or?
It was not put forward in CCE's budget request. And I should say, I see Meg is here. When Meg came and met with us, I think it was her second or third week on the job, and she had inherited the budget that came forward. So she was doing a stellar job of representing a budget that she didn't put together. So.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I think this has the potential to be a really worthwhile program. I do have concerns about the amount of money that we spent last year and the relatively small numbers that benefited from it. I guess my main problem with a lot of the OTRs we're seeing this year, funding a program, is the Colin Powell, you break it, you buy it philosophy. Once we start funding something, are we really signing on for a lifetime of support? If there is a way to give this one more year and make it quite clear that we're not signing up for a lifetime, then I think it's worth supporting.
I think that's fair, Deborah. I think that, yeah, if it's not working after 2 years, that's long enough. And we need to think of some other way to try to reach this population.
Because we're funding a lot of workforce initiatives and initiatives that are targeted to their target population at Career Pathways through a lot of other organizations. And I just don't want to see the balkanization of this particular initiative the way so many other of our social action initiatives have been.
Agree.
Yeah.
And the main purpose of Career Pathways is to cross-agency collaboration, that you don't balkanize. You try to bring the different organizations with particular expertise to the table to do what they do well.
Together.
And match them together. Yeah.
Okay. Mike, I saw your hand.
I was just thinking about what you said, Deborah, and I was wondering if we could somehow require a report after 6 months next year as to where it's going and how many people are being served, and whether we could in some way make like the second half of it dependent on that report.
Well, I certainly think we could ask for a report. I mean, if we're shelling out $85,000, we can pretty much ask for what we want to. I'm not sure. We had a similar proposal come from the city on another program, that they would not approve funding for something until they had looked at a work plan and seen how it had worked out. And then they'd decide whether they'd give the program the money. And the problem is you can't run a program that way. We could certainly require the report. We could certainly provide input on how we would like to see it improve if we don't like where it's going, but I don't know that we can pull the funding for the second half of the year. I see Shauna's hand.
Would you put it in the chat?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Lower the lights.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to read this stuff.
Yeah, I had a question in regards to the people that have gone through the program. Out of the 20, what are they now currently doing? How many of the 20 have gone on to be successful?
They've just finished in the last several months, but Aloja is, I believe, in the waiting room, and he just posted in the chat. I'm not sure. He said he had some information for us if we wanted it.
I'll jump in before Aloja does, because Aloja, you're muted. If that's okay, is that allowed?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, to Shauna's point about return on investment, several of the, I don't know tons about it because again, I'm new. Thank you, Lisa, for your kind words. But several are placed in jobs. So I think one of the things I like to look at is return on investment. So at that mid-year mark, I think we would be able to say what the 85, what the return is. I can just because I have the floor for a second, I think it's a game changer. I've done work in the past in this space, and especially with the green jobs training and all the NYSERDA energy work that is coming into extension that we're bringing on. This is beautiful to blend with some of those activities as well for placement in employment. So I think it's a game changer. Aloja, can you talk now with your?
Yes, thank you very much for allowing me to quickly make some comments. First, I want to thank Rich John for bringing this to the legislature, and thank you also for funding last year. I want to quickly say that of all the trainees that we have had, all of them had a chance to work through reuse, because we use that. The way with this collaborative network works is that we're able to hire those who are not restricted by either having to do some programming for parole or probation or to attend treatment programs. They actually go through reuse, and they are paid. Of the cohort we just finished with that graduated, and I sent the pictures, everything, I don't know if you saw it, the only two individuals who are not working has to do with family circumstances. All of them are working. But the most important thing that this has shown us is that we are no longer competing with one another. In July, we were able to do the first Green Jobs Expo, and this brought together TST BOSIS. It brought the Workforce Development Center, URO, OAR, and we were able to bring HALCO and the green employers together to recruit, and unions as well, to sign people up. And in the plan that we have now, we are going to embed a trainer at I just spoke to Siobhan at the Southside Community Center. She has referred to me 5 people to begin on the 25th of October, and out of them, one of them will be trained to be an instructor, so that we can actually do career pathways training at Southside Community Center, so they don't have to come to TC3. And then all our participants gained a federally recognized certification, which is the first that we have ever done in this county. They have been registered on the Federal Department of Labor site, and they have a certification in this workforce program. And I just want to say finally that we do have, if this continues to gain momentum, we will not be coming to the county for more funds, because a number of interest has been expressed, and we're looking for a sustainable pathway for funding. We just actually really don't want to be coming to the county for an OTR, but if we could get one more year of support, and with the agencies that we're working with having now all coalesced into making sure we can recruit together, we can support people when they are employed, and we can connect them to opportunities that come as we see the new electrification project that was approved on July the 14th of this year. So that is if I personally would not be involved in the program if it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I do not believe in wasting the county's money, and I also do not believe in wasting my investment. I really believe that there is a pathway. It's not something we have explored before, but this is the first time that I can see us. We are no longer competing. We are maximizing resources. So I do want to thank Rich, not only just for bringing this, but he does come to our classes. He does come to present as both, a legislator and also somebody who is in the county. And that has made a big, big impression on people who are not only wanting to do entry-level jobs, but also to seek a way, to move forward in their career. So I do want to thank you for the funding we have received in the past, and I will be happy to give 3-month report, 6-month report, 9-month report, and 12-month report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aloja. Annie.
I think Thanks, Loja and Meg. Just a question regarding, you said that people going through this program, they get a certification, and did you say that's for like a green jobs certification?
Yes, it's the first in the nation. It's called, so it's through the Roots of Success that the federal government just last year, actually I was one of the first 20 instructors to be used to register that program. So that program allows them to earn a certificate. Is the Federal Department of Labor Green Education Certification that they have, and they can use it to pursue entry-level positions in water treatment, in waste management, and the number of jobs that are coming into into the city, and as well as apply for federal funds. That's these individuals, they can apply for federal funds for further training, and this is the first cohort that has got it in the county.
So water treatment, waste management, and green jobs?
And any green job. Heat pump training is one of the big ones that we are waiting for. Actually, so heat pump training, weatherization. So the big ones: water treatment, water and waste management, weatherization, and heat pump training and installation.
Okay. And are you finding some people also, because you have the unions connected to it, are some people then also applying to go into some of the union training programs?
Yes, so so part of the career pathways is the DC4, the pipe fitters, and then IBEW. They work with us, and their goal is to recruit both from us, and also we send to them. Yes, and they were some of the Captain's Union actually participated in the Green Expo that we had on July 14th. I believe they signed up a few individuals. I can't remember. It could be 2 or 3 that they signed up. Yes, we're working with the unions that have been part of this career pathways project so far.
Great, thank you. I know last year you explained a lot of this, and sorry I didn't remember it all. And I do remember that that you have a great participation by people of color. So I think that's an important part of your program that reaches population that is often underserved or underconnected. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, are we ready to vote? Let's vote.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
and Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
We have 14 ayes. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Loja, and thank you, Rich. The next one is the
Thank you
Homeless
very much.
Outreach Coordinator, Shauna Black.
Thank you, Deborah. So I initially had contacted Laura Lewis because she had a homeless coordinator in her mayor's budget. And we were going to bring forth the presentation together. However, her vision was a little bit different than what I thought we actually needed. And so I have worked on the job description with Ruby, Lisa as well over the weekend. Today, I reached out to Cindy Wilcox from the Human Services Coalition, as well as Liddy Barger, and talked to them about the position that would be needed here in our community. And the way that I envisioned this position was a sort of liaison between the city, the county, our nonprofits, the unhoused community, as well as the neighbors that are currently living in the city of Ithaca right now that are struggling with some of the homeless situations. And excuse me, the position would report to county administration and would be housed out of the old jail. There's a room in the basement that we can prepare for this position. And ideally, they would work within the COC with Liddy and Cindy at the Human Services Coalition. And also with the idea that it would be a liaison of sorts and come to both municipalities, city and county, with a way to help our homeless population. I know that all of us have kind of been going in 100 different directions trying to figure out how we can help. And I'm not saying that it might be tides, it might not be tides, but I think that this person comes in a very neutral person and can provide us with some background, touch base with all of the nonprofits that are involved, and then come to us within either 6, 8 months, a year with a strategy for us to move forward.
So did you want to move that, Shauna?
Yeah, if I can move it.
All right, second by Dan, thank you.
Yeah.
Comments, questions? Dan?
I like this idea a lot. I think it's very clear. I don't think anyone would disagree with this, that if we're going to attempt some large scale solution to what's going on, and I think we probably all agree too that we need something, that it's going to be a joint effort of the city and the county. I can't imagine any other way that we could do this. And if that is the case, what we're lacking right now is any kind of coordination between the city and the county on whatever project happens. And that's what I hope this position would accomplish, at least a big part of it. So that's why I support it, and I hope you will as well. My questions have to do with, right now there is, as Shauna pointed out, there's a difference in how the city is looking at this potential position, and hopefully they'll see our way. But regardless, right now it's a different position. So I'm wondering what the best mechanics are in terms of us voting on this tonight. Should it be in contingency, or are there any other things that we should think about? Because if we end up passing it and they don't, or the city passes a different version, are we going to go with a halftime position? Like, these are unanswered questions.
Well, that's a good question, Dan, and I'm curious, Shauna, can you elaborate any on what the differences in our visions are?
Yeah, so Laura had envisioned it actually being a community outreach worker. And what I've seen is that every agency has community outreach workers that are going to the encampments and that are working with our homeless population. And so I don't think there's a need to necessarily add that person. I think the actual work needs to be done with both city and county. And there actually needs to be a plan moving forward. We talk about plans and action plans, and I know that sometimes just gathering our legislature feels like herding kittens. And so I already somewhat pity this person for having to herd both the council and the legislature.
Good marketing, Shauna.
Yeah, sorry. But I think it's necessary, and Dan's right, as far as us moving forward with any type of process on the homeless front, we are going to have to work with the city, and we really need to have that person in the middle as a liaison. I have spoken with 4 or 5 of the council members, and they definitely seem on board with this proposal, and will bring it forth in their budget. So I think there is great support. What I would actually propose is for us to do a 2-year, and for this to be put in contingent fund until it passes with the city council.
That's probably a good strategy. Okay, I've got Mike Sigler.
I'd like to vote for this, but what you just described, I don't like. I think we do need this. It would be my suggestion, you don't worry about the city. Do it independent of the city. And if the city wants to hop on board later, let them hop on board. But this is an issue now. I mean, I'm sorry, Shauna, you just threw out like 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do 2 years from now.
I don't think you heard me, Mike. I threw out 1 year.
No, you said 2.
It would be funded for 2 years. I said within 6 months to 8 months, they would come to us with a plan.
And then you said, or a year. But it doesn't matter. The timeline, I think, has to be much quicker. And listen, I appreciate that we want to work with the city and stuff. And I get that people want to do that. I mean, we all want to do that, but I just think we should go it alone and we should just do it. And I don't know if necessarily this is somebody we need to bring into the county to do this. I mean, I would like to bring somebody in, and I don't want to even say consultant because I hate the word consultant. I want to bring somebody in who's going to say, listen, here's 3 options you folks can do. You can do the Tides program. You can build a shelter. It's going to cost this, and this third program, you're going to build a shelter and then you're going to build some housing out here. That's going to be low barrier housing. And that's going to cost this, and they're going to give you a price range. And we're going to say, that's what we're doing. I just kind of feel like maybe this is kind of a Band-Aid, and I don't want to do a Band-Aid again. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being too harsh with the narrative, and I don't mean to be, but I think we're going to make a lot more progress faster if we don't involve the city.
Well, I see everyone's hands. I think that part of the problem is that we realize the need is urgent. It doesn't mean that somebody's going to be able to pull 3 good plans out of the sky. And what I don't want to see us do is.
Deborah, it's not out of the sky. Other places are doing this. They just got to put together the things and give us some options.
Yeah, but every place is different.
I don't disagree with that, but.
Well, I still think.
We need some actionable items.
I know we need them, but it doesn't mean they're going to materialize in your time frame. That's my point. I realize we feel an urgent need to do something. Doesn't mean we should do anything. We need to find the right thing to do.
Well, right, but wouldn't that be why you bring somebody like that on board to say,
Right,
here are your
but-
3 options, make a choice?
But this problem exists on city property, which means
Doesn't
that we
have to.
cannot proceed unilaterally without cooperation and working with the city.
Disagree.
Well, then we
Completely
disagree.
disagree with that.
That's
We
fine.
can declare a health emergency down there and clean it out.
I know that that's your favored approach.
It's not my favorite approach. If you don't think it's a health emergency down there, I don't really know what qualifies then. I'm lost on that, to be honest with you.
I hear you. Okay, I've got Mike Lane, Annie, Rich, and Greg.
I like Shauna's suggestion here. I think putting some money away for this makes a lot of sense. I think we need to work with the city. I don't want to take this on by ourselves. It is a city problem. It's also a county problem because that city problem leads to the need for county services. But I think the idea of, if it's a 1 year, one time, 60,000, I would support it.
Okay, Annie?
So I'm wondering if we can figure out how to do this and kind of compromise with this of, if the city doesn't go with this, then that this was part of the request for this OTR, is that if X, Y, and Z by the city, then we go ahead and fund the whole position. Just wondering, I want to put that out there. And secondly, this has been helping people through homelessness is not something that started happening the last couple of years. It's been going on forever, really. So I think it's something that in my head, this person is not only going to help us with options, but then help us implement these things right away. Because as we've seen before, plans are often as good as the paper or electronic that they're written on. We need somebody to help us say, here's some ideas, here's where we could get funding, here's how we could do this, and to work with the city and then say, okay, let's go. We tell them the path to go on, and then they go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got Rich, Greg, and Randy.
I like this idea. And to Mike's point, perhaps we could consider putting a second amount in contingency that if the visions align between the city and the county, we would just use the first amount. But if it didn't, as Mike suggests, we could vote to use the second amount for a full position. Anyway.
Okay, that's definitely a possibility. Let's hear from everybody and then you can consider whether you want to offer that as an amendment. Greg?
Yeah, I appreciate Shauna for bringing this forward. I do think we need someone in the county's corner that's going to help us navigate this and be focused on this. I'm fine, but I'm not excited about it being a shared position with the city. Like I'm okay with it. But I would much rather see this be a county employee with county directive working on county interest, recognizing that the city of Ithaca is in Tompkins County, and that there's some opportunity for them to work with city folks. But I ultimately think that this position needs to work for us at the county level, because I think we need the direction and insight that comes back to us. And I think it's hard enough to have 14 legislators and a county administrator, and then you add city council and a mayor and 2 different attorneys and all of the above on top of that. And I think you lose the impact. So I would much rather make a larger investment. I don't necessarily agree with everything Mike said, but I do support the idea that this is somebody that works for us, because I think when we look at county interests, we also take into account all of our municipalities' interests in that discussion. So if they want to get on board with somebody that's a part-time position that coordinates with this position at the county or at the city, I think that's great. But I think that this should be a county position. Either way, I will support this because I think we need to be doing more about this. And I think that this is a step. I would just like to see a bigger step forward.
Thank you, Greg. Randy? And then Lee?
Yes, thank you. I think this is a step in the right direction. I agree with Rich and Ann and Greg that it may be better off being county funded, and I like Rich's idea. But I think I also would like to think that the city wants to solve this problem. And it is their land, and we, in the political world, we need to figure out how to work together no matter who we are. And we got to give them the opportunity to put their best foot forward as well. But if they don't, then we need to take it on ourselves.
Thank you, Randy. I've got Len, Veronica, or Lee, Veronica, Amanda, and then Mike Sigler.
Or a question maybe for Shauna or Dan or Rich, and just, this is one issue I haven't been much involved with, just observing from afar, but we've talked about the amount of services that are available through the county to support the homeless through a variety of agencies and departments. And, this position obviously will attempt to coordinate among all those parties. Is there any one person or agency that is a lead on the homeless problem in the county? Is there a homeless czar or
We do not have SARS, Lee. We're the People's Republic of Ithaca.
Well, we were balkanizing earlier. I just, but I'm just curious. And do you see this, Shauna, as a step toward developing a broader strategy that will pull us all together? Because it's great to coordinate. I was a coordinator for 20 years, but where are we going? And I just don't see that leadership at this point. And I'm trying to figure out where we think it's going to come from, because we've got even divergent views on how this proposal would effectuate things.
Yeah, so we actually rely quite a bit on the Human Services Coalition, and Cindy Wilcox is here with HSC. I will say my vision for this specifically was to have not just the leadership, but to have the policy component that I think they don't necessarily specialize in. And so, you know what, I am happy to let, if Cindy Wilcox can pop in and talk a little bit about what they do and kind of where the gaps are that I think this position would cover.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, thanks, Shauna. The Human Services Coalition is the continuum of care. You've heard that probably before, which is the COC for short, which is a HUD funded, federally funded program that all communities have. And our goal basically is to mitigate, homelessness. And for us, our goal or our mission statement is to make homelessness rare, brief, and one time. We gather a multidisciplinary group of folks that are involved in homeless and housing services to achieve this mission. That includes folks from county departments, folks from city, not-for-profit agencies, other municipalities, funders, all kinds of people who are involved in this. The COC has been in existence, I don't know for how long, years and years and years. It is a very complex, complicated, multi-pronged situation. And it is super challenging. But we continue to work on it because it's super important to the community. I think that by the way, we also have we have a full infrastructure. I am the chair of the COC. Nels Bone from the city of Ithaca is, we're co-chairs, myself and Nels. Liddy Barger is our staff. We have monthly meetings, we have educational meetings, we have working committees that are working on specific areas of this situation, all multidisciplinary. There are a lot of agendas, there's no question about it. But I believe that we are making progress, and it takes a while. I think one of the significant values of the COC in the last year has been the homeless and housing assessment that was jointly sponsored by the city and the county last year. We did a comprehensive assessment. It was very data driven. It was evidence based. It was informed by leading practices and what works and what doesn't in other organizations and communities as well. We identified kind of 5 priorities to mitigate homelessness in Tompkins County. So we have data and we have information and we are working on it. I think the value of what Shauna's position here is that policy component, is that figuring out how to align the city and county's philosophy and from a policy perspective so that we can kind of I won't say get past that because it seems kind of, not important, but I think that there is a opportunity for this person to work closely with the COC and affect systems change and policy change by bringing the county departments together in a kind of objective way and kind of massaging everybody's, needs and agendas to meet the needs of your entire constituency and bringing the city into that as well. So there is, to answer your question, Lee, there is an infrastructure, there is a kind of a neutral, unbiased approach. It's hard. I think that's I think where the value that the COC sees this position as being, which would definitely advance the kind of important needs and agendas of the county.
I appreciate that answer and the extent of what you just explained, because I was trying to wondering a little bit about the placement with county administration. And when you got to this final piece about the alignment and the coordination among the county departments, I think it makes more sense to me at this point. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Lee. Okay, I've got Veronica.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. First briefly, I'm inclined to like Rich's idea of putting all this fund, maybe adding the second half of the funding for 1 year, however you said it, to allow us some
Put it
flexibility.
in contingent.
Yeah,
In
to allow
case
us
the
some
city, yeah.
flexibility to respond after the city's done with their budget process, given that we're doing ours now. 3 things and a question. I'll try to be quick. One, about the urgency. I guess I'd like to echo Annie that the problem of homelessness is very long-standing and it is urgent in that these are people's lives now. And also, if you rush into something that's not actually going to solve anything because you're rushing, that's not helpful either. So I don't have a particular way to balance that, but I think it's important to keep in mind. When I took first aid training many years ago, the first thing they taught us was don't just do something, stand there. And obviously we don't want to stand there forever, but the idea was assess what's up before going in and trying to address a thorny problem. Second, the homelessness, I know the encampments are the hot button issue, but homelessness is everywhere throughout the county and not just in the city. I'm guessing we're going to see this couch surfing point in time count. I'm guessing we're going to see people all over the county and all the municipalities who aren't housed. Third, I appreciated Cindy's background about, the COC and different agencies. And I think that the need for collaboration people mentioned is a really important piece of this homeless coordinator position. I know that, people have spoken about the challenges with the TIDES process. I know I've been disappointed that the continuum of care doesn't seem to have been particularly involved in that. And if maybe it's for lack of a point person to start with. So when thinking about how to structure this position, it seems important to, fund it and put it somewhere where that person can reach out to all the relevant governments, all the relevant agencies and get, response and buy-in and be able to get and give information as much as needed. So then my question is, when it comes to the city, do we think that this homelessness coordinator is gonna be able to work more effectively with the city, or maybe able to work with city agencies and staff to collaborate with maybe what we want them to do if they are an employee of the city or if they are not also an employee of the city? Because I could see it either way, and I know many of you are more experienced in that.
Okay, who wants to take that one on? Okay, Shauna's diving into the breach.
Sure. I think that's part of the job. There has to be the collaboration. And I think even going into it, this is going to have to be a person that's really going to have to be a professional in this arena already, where, it's not a novice position, because there's so much to know about this population, about our community. And so it's not someone that we're just going to be able to hire and hope that they're going to understand our housing problems, within, the first week of working there. With that said, though, as a shared employee, I think it's it could essentially be the way that Mona's position is set up, in that she brings recommendations to both bodies. And, she would essentially make her work plans, based on how we're going to solve, for housing. I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to come up with some type of mission that we agree upon with both the city of Ithaca and the legislature, so that we give her some guidance to move some guidance to move forward, or else they're going to be chasing their tail the whole time.
Okay, thank you, Shauna. I've got Amanda, Mike Sigler, Greg, Mike, and Dan. And then we're going to stop, folks, and we're going to vote.
I don't know what I have to add. I guess I feel a little confused. Like what's written on the original OTR request is not necessarily what we're talking about, right? I mean, you've changed it since then. It says that they'll be housed in city government, but that's not what you're saying now. Okay, and 60,000 is an estimate, so we don't.
The actual dollar amount was on the job description that I sent out earlier today, and I think it was 66,000 was the grade level, and then Lisa was going to come up with the benefits on top of that.
Okay, I guess, and before we vote, I just want to be very clear. Like, I mean, it's also been, somebody said 1 year, then it was said 2 years. I mean, I don't know if 1 year is going to be enough for this person to take stock of the situation and pull something together, especially if they have to coordinate between the city and county. So it feels like a lot of ifs to me. I think it's probably a good idea. It feels very nebulous.
Nebulous.
Yeah.
I will say the reason why I had it for 2 years is there is not a single person we're going to be able to hire for 1 year. Even paying a good rate of $66,000, especially if someone's currently employed, we are going to have to commit to 2 years. And I am very open to what Rich recommended of joining with the city if for some reason they don't pass it with council, us doing it alone. I think that's a good plan.
All right, Mike Sigler.
So I'll go on a couple issues here. I guess I don't see why we're going to play Lucy with the football with the city again. I mean, we asked the city for better security down at DSS, and the answer was no. People have built shanties down on the waterfront. And listen, I get it. People need a place to live. But if these things burn down, it's on the city. It's the city's, I called the building department and they're like, yeah, there's nothing we can do. I can't do that in my driveway in downtown, build a shanty and not have the building department come. I'm going to put you in the Wayback Machine just for a minute. When we did a $200,000 study on Route 13, which was a state road, that isn't our road to deal with, but we went and did a study for that for $200,000. And they came up with a list, I think, of actionable items. I'm not sure. Not that we can take action on them because it's not our road, but fair enough. I can see it if we approach this. And so I guess I can move this. I can see us do a study. And then at the end of this study, it says, listen, here are the options. This is what you're working with. And then we sit down as a legislature and we commit. And listen, that's more money. I'm just saying, yeah, that study, I don't know, $200,000, fine. And it says, okay, here's what you're going to do. And then we as a body vote and say, that's what we're going to do. And it's going to cost us this much. I now see, Rich, why you're pushing tides. I get it now. Because it's literally the best you could do. I mean, with all the bodies involved, I get it. I don't particularly support it, but I get it. So I don't know. I guess vote on this if you want, and then I can move the other thing, or I don't know. Give me some kind of direction on what you want to do, but I would like to, at the end of it, not be a year from now saying, well, great, she's putting together or he's putting together this program or something between the city and us. No, I would like to have something in a form of a report that says, here are the pros and cons of tides. Here are the pros and cons of building this shelter. Here are the pros and cons of building a shelter with tides attached or something like that. And those are just three. I mean, I'm sure they'll have, a few more. But I mean, the models are out there. We kind of need somebody to pull the models together and give us some options. And then we need to vote on what we want those options, what we want to do. And then if the city can climb on board, great. I don't think that we're going to have a problem giving us the land, but maybe, who knows? All right. Because so far, all the city's really said to me is they want money.
That's
They would
all they
really
ever
like us to
say.
fund it. Okay, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
If that's all they're asking for, then we don't really need to consult with them on anything. I would like to see something move forward a little quicker than 2 years or a year or whatever the case may be. So thanks.
Okay, Greg.
Yeah, I want to just echo Shauna's concern. I think a 1-year commitment, I think anything short of a 3-year commitment to a position like this from a recruitment and a retention standpoint is going to be challenging to get the type of caliber person we'd want to see. I would be inclined to maybe move that we make this all a county position and do it for 3 years at $100,000. And then at some point take Rich's Tides 100,000 and put that into it as well and make it for some consultant that could, again, I know some of us don't like that word, but some outside support that could help really quarterback this with this coordinator position to come to us in 8 months time with real proposal options that we can act on.
Sounds a lot like an RFP.
So we'll take the 100,000 off the table for a second. I would just move that this become a full county position and for $100,000 for 3 years. And it's the county homeless coordinator.
Okay, is that friendly to the mover and seconder?
No, not for me.
I actually have a quick question for Lisa.
Okay.
Lisa, as far as the grade for that, what was the grade and the benefits? Can you tell me what that came out to? I just want to make sure, Greg, that if you're saying 100,000, that includes the salary as well as the benefits.
The total, yeah, is right around 100,000, just shy of 100,000.
Okay.
Something and change.
Yeah, it's friendly to me.
Okay, it's not friendly to the seconder, but Annie's seconding Greg's motion, so it's not friendly. Now we can take discussion, if any, on the amendment proposed, and then we'll vote on that. I have Dan and Mike.
I mean, I would support that as a backup proposal. I don't think we should give up on the city quite yet. We need them. We're married. Some of you want to get a divorce. We can't. We live in the same room with them. So that's what I would like to see, is give it a try with the city first. If it doesn't work out, then yeah, I would definitely support taking it on ourselves.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think we should say from day one that we're going to make this a full-time position. I think the original idea of Shauna was good. I don't agree with Rich saying put all the money in contingency, because if I'm a city council person and I see that, I'm going to say, why should we put any money into it? All we got to do is say no, and the county will do it. They've already set the money up. So if we really want the city to be a part of this, I don't think we should agree from day one to coordinate this or pay for this coordinator 100%.
If I could just clarify, I wasn't suggesting put it all in contingency. I was saying do 2 tranches. So
But
works the same way.
taking Mike's point, it works the same way. If they know the money's there and we're willing to spend it, then we've given away the farm. Greg, did you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see the county pass a $60,000 portion for this too, and have somebody that is in their corner advocating for the city's interests in this conversation as well, and have a part-time position in the city and a full-time position in the county working collaboratively together. I think that's more brain power. And so I think if they're really committed to this, it's an opportunity for them to step up and do the same commitment that I think we're trying to make here at the county, to say this is a problem. And to Veronica's point, it's not a new problem. To Ann's point, it's not a new problem. It's not going away. So this idea of this short tenure, we're going to have a homelessness issue for a while, right? We need to make the homelessness issue less, right? We need to continue to chip away at it. I don't know if we'll ever fully be able to solve it, but we need to do our best to try to eliminate it as possible. Or I really liked what Cindy said, rare, brief, and one time, right? That's really what our goal should be. And I think we need to commit long-term to making this a priority for the county, because I think a lot of people are expecting us to do more about it. And I think this is an opportunity for us to do more.
Amanda?
I don't necessarily disagree with the amendment. I guess I'm always a little, with all of these actually, a little bit hesitant to just sign up for a new position that we haven't defined and discussed. And so I guess if you're saying everything that has been proposed and discussed, that's what this person would do minus coordinating with the city, then, like, I guess I'm not sure what you're proposing.
Yeah, it would be minus working for the city.
Working for-
Coordination with every, avenue or department or municipality in the county, but not working for. It'd be a county employee, but by all means, the city is part of the
Sure,
solution. They need to
sure.
coordinate with the city as well.
Okay.
Randy and then Annie. And then we are going to vote on this amendment. People, we have spent 40 minutes on this.
I don't support a 3-year. I support a 2-year. When I was speaking to somebody that goes down the encampment quite a bit, just a point of fact, a lot of the people that are there are not people who live in the city. They live throughout the county. They come down there because that's where the services are. That's why they live there, because they're closer to things. It's hard to have an encampment in the Newfield if there's no services there at all. So it is more than just a city issue. I agree completely with Dan. We've got to give the a chance to step up. But I think we also, to Mike's point, they haven't proven they're going to. They can't hire police. They've got real issues, and we shouldn't be real patient with them. So that's my thought.
Okay.
We should not be real patient with them.
Should not be real patient with the city.
Okay, Annie, and then we're going to vote on the offered amendment.
I wanted to say, as far as the homelessness outside of the city, as Randy said, it's not something that's often talked about, but people become homeless all over the county. And this person will, if it's full-time, they're going to be working for people all over the county. So I definitely will support this.
Okay, we're going to vote on the amendment.
We just clarify what we're voting on?
The amendment is that it would be a $100,000 multi-year OTR? 3 years. Okay, at $100,000, and this person would be a county employee. Go ahead.
And can you just tell everybody again what this county employee will do?
I have no.
Did you see the job description, Mike? I sent it earlier today.
Good.
Essentially what we've been talking about, minus the coordinating with the city.
Oh, no, they would be coordinating with the
Well,
city. They
minus
just wouldn't be
working-
paying for the
Right.
For the city.
That part of the coordinating.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
No.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
No.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
No?
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
No.
Mike Sigler,
No.
Deborah Dawson,
No.
8 ayes, 6 noes. Amendment passes.
Okay, so now we're going to move forward with this as amended. Dan?
Briefly want to say that I feel the best I've ever felt after a no vote. This is a good proposal and I support it.
Feels good to be a loser.
Once in a while.
Okay, let's vote.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
No.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
No.
Deborah Dawson,
No.
11 ayes, 3 noes. Amendment passes.
Okay. Next up, contingency fund for the public safety building design services. That's Rich Johns.
Thank you, Deborah. Prior to the pandemic, we had been working through public safety on potential renovation at the jail, and it got completely derailed. But just for background, the public safety building was commissioned in 1986. It has gotten continuous use since the day it opened. As a stopgap, we have funded certain improvements to the jail portion of the building, but there's much larger need. And particularly in trying to end up with a better design so that we could have more efficient supervision of the people in the jail. And also, we've added the centralized arraignment part at the public safety building, which has taken away some other programmatic space. What this OTR would do would allow us to resurrect the plans that we had been looking at before the pandemic and complete them and try to determine whether to put a project back into the capital plan. I asked for it in contingency because we might not need it. It might be that the design services we already received from Labella would answer the questions we have. But if not, this would give us a small amount to complete that review, update it, and make a decision. So I would move this OTR.
Can I get a second? Thank you, Lee. Discussion?
I think it's important to try to get to some answers on the public safety building. We've got a lot of stuff in the hopper, capital-wise, and other large projects out there. But to me, that decision is really going to impact how I look at all the rest of them. The investment in the public safety building before I can look at a county office building downtown, for instance.
Okay. Amanda.
Just to clarify, sorry, my brain is not fully here tonight. Is this design like services to look at a whole new jail or just to revise what we have or some combination of both?
That's what the Public Safety Committee would need to determine. My sense, one of the 5 on the committee, is that we would not want to lose the benefit of the money we just put in. Where we could get real advantage is if we converted or built a new area as a pod so that you can have far more efficient supervision. Right now, we have what's called a linear jail, and you need several corrections officers to supervise. We went and saw the Shenango County Jail that has pods, and one officer can supervise, a whole bunch of people. Right now, we end up boarding out our women most of the time because it just isn't efficient for us to do it otherwise. And we're spending more than we probably need to. We are spending more than we need to on supervision of the population in general. And frankly, a pod system allows much quicker reaction if there's a problem.
Yeah, definitely. So, but still just to clarify, so the Public Safety Committee would kind of direct these services of what you want them to look at more, or I'm just trying to understand, like, what exactly are they going to be?
Yeah,
like the big picture?
I was trying to give the big picture, but we would be looking at resurrecting all the plans that were prepared before the pandemic, comparing them in light of the improvements that are happening right now, and what steps could be done to add a pod system into the current environment so we would not lose the current space. And in fact, we would reuse a lot of the jail facility for classrooms and for other programming, improve our medical facility, which is right now in a jail, improve the CAP, the centralized arraignment part court, and give the briefing room back to the road patrol that they lost in that process of setting up that court. And the holding cells aren't optimized for use by the cap court and for people coming into the jail. So there would be a lot of different considerations to look at, but we've done a lot of the work already. So it really would just making sure we knew where we were at so that we could come back to the full legislature with perhaps a proposal on amending the capital plan.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Annie?
Just one question. So this would be done in coordination with F&I. Is that correct? Facilities and Infrastructure Committee?
Correct. We would then pass the project on to F&I. Yeah, when we complete our review.
Okay, maybe we can talk, I'm just, some coordination, maybe. or-
Happy to have F&I participate along the way as well. That's fine.
Shauna?
Yeah, so I mean, we've continued to have this discussion about pods versus the linear system. We actually spent probably 3 years ago, $80,000 to Labella to devise all of these plans that included pods or not pods. And gosh, we debated back and forth, even up to last year, about whether we were going to go for a pod or not. The cost at that point, and this was before COVID, we were looking at around $40 million. And my guess is that's probably gone up due to materials. I personally do not think it's the time or the place for us to do more plans, nor do I think, or can I imagine many of my colleagues are up for spending $40 to $60 million on a new jail, especially when the trend is actually going towards more regional facilities. If you see a lot of the surrounding regional facilities, I think Broome is sitting at around half occupied. And I think the last thing that at least I want to do is spend our tax dollars on a new facility at the tune of 40 million, especially after putting 6 million of renovations just this past year. So I will not be supporting this OTR.
Okay, anybody else?
Just to clarify, we don't know what the cost would be. And presumably there might be a way to do this at lower cost, but I agree with you, Shauna, this is a big number. And that's why I think we should be thinking very carefully about it. And we might not need the full 20,000. I just want it in contingency so that if planning is necessary, further design services, we'd have the capability to get at that.
Annie?
I think this is, to clarify, I believe this is different than what we talked about a few years ago with building a whole new jail with pods. This is, you're talking about adding a pod, which would be, and I went on some of those tours and was involved in some of those conversations, would be easier to staff. It would be safer for staff and people who were there. And it would be easier to house people of various different genders, including people who were transgender. So, and I believe at some point, I thought we even looked at the cost, but maybe not, but that it was, say, 5 to 10 million to add a pod versus the larger figure was to, for a whole new jail.
I think that's correct.
Okay, anybody else? Let's vote.
Shauna Black.
No.
Travis Brooks.
He'll come back.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Henry Grandison.
No.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
Dan Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
No.
I have 10 ayes and 3 noes.
Okay, that carries. The next one, contingency fund, City of Ithaca support to fund tides, $100,000.
Thank you, Deborah. And this obviously reintroduces a subject we just spent 40 minutes talking about. I do not want to spend a lot of time reviewing the current conditions in the encampments, and except to say that they pose problems on multiple levels. There's public safety, there's public health, there's untreated addiction, untreated mental health issues. There's all of the economic impacts we're seeing in businesses on the West End. I would like to just state that I do own a property on the West End. I would get no financial benefit specifically from Tides or any other proposal, but owning property there and working on it, I have had an opportunity to see the impacts very up close. And again, not to belabor the point, but there's urgency here. And certainly there's county impacts. If you were able to go through the further responses Lisa provided from department heads, thank you, Lisa, for doing the second round on that, of what happens if we just maintain the status quo. There's real cost in all sorts of different directions for the county in not making any decision. And so I believe we need to try to do something. Unfortunately, I agree with everybody who said the city really needs to be the first mover here. And what this OTR is designed to do is to provide a signal to the city, hopefully, that the county understands this is an issue that needs attention on a collaborative basis between the city and the county. But we need the city to take its first step to present a proposal. Putting it in contingency means it would come back to us, whatever proposal that might be, if one arises, for us to really consider and vote on. What I do not want to see is that we just wait a year, that we miss the budget cycle, and there is nothing we can do for another year unless we find money within our budget as we can. I'd rather plan for it. And as I said, send a signal to the city that we're serious about this, we want to help, and we want them to be active on this. Happy to try to answer any questions, but I think you all understand where we're at this point. And I guess I'll say one more thing. It doesn't have to be Tides. The way the OTR is written, it's Tides or similar proposal coming out of their RFEI process. If there's a better idea than Tides, let's get behind that. I haven't heard one, but if there is something better, this OTR is designed so that we could fund that rather than we're not locked into doing anything. Thanks.
Sigler.
I'm glad he said that because I was going to move to strike the word tides from it and just make it like homeless plan or something more generic. If you're amenable to that, then
I would move it.
Okay, and Dan seconds it. Thank you. Okay, thanks for the reminder. Madam Roberts rules, yeah.
if you're amenable to that, then
what would be your, the language I have is Tides or similar proposal coming out of their RFEI process.
and that part I'm fine with. I would just, is this the actual title, contingency fund, City of Ithaca support to fund tides?
Yeah, and we could add that language to it.
That'd be fantastic. You do that, we're good to go. Well, for me anyway, I don't know.
That's friendly to me. Yes.
Okay.
Speak for anybody else.
Yeah, I agree with that. We don't know what the heck our solution's going to be or what it's going to be called, but clearly we need one. I would say, Rich, that my understanding of the Tides proposal is that the county's financial commitment is going to have to be considerably in excess of $100,000.
I certainly struggled with the number. However, if there's a decision by the city to do something, I would consider this a match. I believe there would be a possibility of getting other sources of revenue for the construction and the beginning of operation. I believe there is such a coalescence, if I can use that word, of concern around this, what's happening right now, that I believe there could be funding obtained elsewhere too. And I picked the 100,000 because I didn't know what number to pick. But it had to be enough to be substantial, but I did not want us to be in the position of suddenly funding the whole thing. I think the city needs to be the first mover. They have to do something serious as well. And we talk from there.
Okay, thank you.
Point of information, please.
Sure.
Lisa, we're very hung up on this idea of we need to do this at budget time because we're doing the budget. If something came along during the year that we wanted to fund, we would just vote on it, right? We We seem to really be stuck on that.
Yeah, there would be a process, I mean, through contingency fund and then replenishing the contingency fund, or if it's in a departmental budget. But typically, yeah, we try to do all of the major, when there are comparisons to be made about priorities, it's best to have them all kind of laid out in front of you during the budget process rather than doing them in the middle of the year. But your point is correct. The legislature could choose to make a mid-year decision.
Thanks.
Okay, I have Shauna, Annie, and Greg.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if our newly hired homeless coordinator were to come to us within 6 months with a plan for the county, could these funds be used for that?
I don't see why not.
Yes.
Okay, well, as it's written now, it talks about the RFEI. You know, I'm just,
You could broaden it to that, Shauna. I mean,
okay,
what I want us to do is to be serious about action.
yep.
So how about it's to fund homelessness initiatives?
Right, and strike the rest. I was going to
Yeah.
propose that next.
Does that work?
As long as we understand this would be a collaboration with the city, because we need to be specific enough about.
So homelessness initiatives between the county and the city?
Because if we're talking about the encampments, there really is no solution that can be county only.
Well, aside
gonna
from
preclude that, though.
declaring a public health emergency and sending in the health Gestapo, no, there isn't.
I would feel more comfortable that we maintain this structure, that this is intended as a match, as I've stated here, in the event the city of Ithaca supports a proposal in their 2023 budget, that we want the city to act. And in terms of structuring this as an incentive, I think there's real value in that. If we decouple it, I'm not sure it's going to have nearly the impact.
That's fine. Makes sense.
Okay, so what am I down to now, Greg?
Sorry, and you were before me, right? Did you make your?
Yeah, Annie, I'm sorry. I thought you'd spoken. Go ahead.
So I am going to propose that we take out where it says on the second line, after it says fund, the rest of that sentence, the tides or similar project, we just approved funding someone, a county staff person to work on homelessness. So I would like to give them the flexibility to do that. Taking out reference to the tides does not preclude us from doing something with tides, with the city. So it kind of, in a way, ties our hands. It could tie our hands.
So what do you want to replace it with?
Homelessness, I was going to say projects, but you said a different word.
Well, how about to fund homelessness initiative or city county homelessness
I
initiatives?
wouldn't, because we just talked about that person is serving the whole county. So if the city comes up, it doesn't preclude us. We can tell them that we're hoping they come with us and they work on this together. But if not, we need to work on this. So, I mean, or you wanted to say homelessness projects such as tides, but not.
But not limited to. I'm fine with not limited to tides.
Yeah, to fund homelessness projects, including but not limited to the tides proposal.
Or a similar proposal coming out of their RFEI process so that we get everything. Is that okay?
So say the whole sentence again.
To fund homeless initiatives, including tides.
But
I would say
including but
such as.
But not limited to tides or similar proposal coming out of the city's RFEI process. Does that cover it?
Yeah, that covers
Well,
everything.
the word you said before tides, I would say such as, but not including means,
Homeless initiatives, including but not limited to.
oh, including but not limited to.
Yes.
It still means you're going to fund tides as far as I'm
No,
Right?
it means that tides is one of the possibilities. Including but not limited to. It means that tides is one of the possibilities, but it's not the only possibility.
Okay, if that's what that means, then I'm fine with that. But it sounds when you're including, but not limited to me, sounds like you're including that, but also saying it could be used for other things. So I would prefer the words in there such as tides.
This is how you
first.
write contracts, if you want to give an example, but you don't want to limit it. You say including but not limited to.
Okay.
Procedural question.
Sure.
Money goes into contingency to come back out. It's going to have a vote here again.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. So it's not, if somebody comes up with something completely new and different and wonderful, we can all vote to spend the money on that. Randy.
I just had a question. I know it's semantics about words, but you said it's about what's coming out of the city study. It's not, we don't have to accept anything comes out of the study. We can do our own thing, right? That was my
We could.
confusion with Ann, I think.
Yes.
Okay. And also so $400,000, I think that's a show of so far that we've approved. I know, but 300,000 for another $100,000 for homelessness. Not sure it's not enough. So the environmental issue alone down there, regardless of who pays for it, is going to be quite a bit of money to clean it up. And to Dan's point in his email, if the city doesn't just continues to allow encampments, it's going to be a waste of time anyway. So I think that's why I think the city has to be involved in what we're doing. But I think that it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to clean that up down there. So I almost think we should put more money in, because if we do start to do this, we're going to have to clean this stuff up. And if the city doesn't want to pay for it, are we going to do it anyways?
Well, that's a question that we probably shouldn't be answering within this budget process. I agree with you. It's a question that will at some point probably have to be answered, but I don't think it's our job to do it now.
Yeah, the concerns are largely on city-owned property. So they sort of own that problem.
They own that mess.
And I agree with you that the remediation of these sites is a complex process that will take a lot of different expertise to really address. I mean, you have garbage, you have biohazard, you have a lot of goods that were taken from stores like grocery carts, pallets, propane tanks. But you also have the individual's possessions, and you have to be cognizant of that and making sure that there's a process to preserve what you can of this is all they own in the world. So yeah, very hard, complex. And if we get through this, we get to a point where the city commits, there will have to be a lot of thinking about how to do this the right way. Yeah.
Okay, so a question, is Annie's proposal friendly?
That language that we,
Yes.
friendly to me. Yes.
Okay, is it unfriendly to anybody here? Amanda?
No, it's not. But I guess I just want to point out that what's written on these little sheets is not necessarily word for word. I mean, we've been through that. So I think it's more of a general understanding of what is everybody on the same page of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, but if you say I'm moving this OTR, the only record of the OTR is what's written. If we're going to make substantial changes, we just need to make that clear for the record.
I hope someone's keeping track of it, because we went through the whole thing with the other OTR and it
Here
was
she is.
very different than what was printed. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you to our clerks.
Yes, indeed, because we would be lost without them.
We have no idea what we're talking about.
Okay. All right. So does anybody want to talk about this some more or can we vote? Let's vote.
Oh, sorry, are we voting on the original OTR?
No, we're voting on the OTR with the friendly amendment.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Can I say
Sure.
anything? I'm not sure I totally tracked the amending, but either way, I think that if we're trying to match something the city might do in the 2023 budget, that's when we like just allocated money to hire a new home outreach coordinator. That's like, that does not make sense time-wise. And I think it would be premature to allocate money for it. Sorry, can someone remind me, is Tides named in the OTR that we're voting on?
It's as an example, right? And we're not committing money.
Right.
We're
I
just
understand that we're
setting
not
it
committing
aside.
money. Yeah. Okay. In any case, the one thing is that I think that forcing people out of their homes is bad, even if those homes are tents in a marsh behind some businesses. And that is a fundamental component of the Tides proposal. So I can't support even like, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudging in the direction of supporting Tides, which I see this as doing.
Okay, thank you. We'll vote now.
Date, please.
Yeah.
Funding of
Hold on
$100,000.
a second.
Travis has a comment.
I just want to be very clear. That's not a fundamental purpose of Tides. To force people out of anything that's not part of Tides. It's not a proposal in Tides.
Okay, I'm not sure that we ought to be debating the merits of Tides. Because this Tides is one thing that this could possibly support, but generally this is to support homeless initiatives. And each of us will vote for or against this depending on their understanding of Tides, and that's just the way it goes. So funding of $100,000 into the contingency account to hold a county match in the event the city of Ithaca supports a proposal in their 2023 budget year to fund homeless initiatives, including but not limited to Tides or similar proposals coming out of their RFEI process.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
No.
Greg Mezzi, Veronica Pillar,
No.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
12 ayes, 2 noes. Amendment passes.
Okay, Rich, another of your,
Yeah, I apologize for going on here. This is essentially a timing OTR. This is to add $172,413 to unallocated revenues in anticipation of the domestic terrorism prevention grant that we anticipate receiving. And it would provide funding to the Sheriff's Department, their civil deputy, Department of Emergency Response data analyst, and county administration outreach activities. And I move it.
do I have a second? Veronica, thank you. I just have a question. We're adding this money to unallocated revenues. Where's it coming out of?
Coming from the State Department of Homeland Security Emergency Services dishes.
Okay. All right. So what happens if we don't get the grant? Does it matter or does this just go away?
We would be paying local tax levy dollars for these positions.
Yeah, there's a risk here.
So if we don't get the grant, then we've got to come up with 172,000 out of either fund balance or the levy. Okay.
We've been given notification from the state that they expect this grant to continue.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mike Lane.
So it's target because these positions that are going to be funded by the state grant are going to be continued and funded in the future by state grant money?
That's what we have been
Led to believe. And the check's in the mail. Lee?
I'm trying to understand this. So you're going to increase the target by 172,000. Are we increasing the revenues by 172,000 in expectation that they're going to?
If we get the grant, we are.
So should this really be showing as an increase to the overall bottom line? Should we be offsetting it with the revenue?
So
yeah, go ahead.
So
Talk your way out of this one, Norma Jane.
Yes, the unallocated revenue, this is adding to the unallocated revenues, and the expenditures for this are sitting within the department's budgets. It would be, go ahead.
Listening.
Oh, you look like you had another question, a follow-up question. So what this amendment actually puts revenue into the unallocated revenues. Next year, it would be reasonable to expect that the departments would apply their budget. They would submit their budgets with their portion of this revenue in their budgets within their targets. But for this year, because that didn't happen during the time it's a timing thing. It didn't come in at the time these folks were putting together their budgets. Rather than modifying all three departments' budgets, we're putting it into the unallocated revenues. But next year they would, it's similar to what happened with the Department of Emergency Response with the grant that they got from the state that continued year after year after year. It was part of their target. This would happen with this money as well.
So are we adding to target here?
Yes.
Okay. Mike?
And we're not going to get this grant funding until 2024?
No, this is 2023. I'm saying.
If we get it, it will come next
Saying that
year.
the departments would put it into their budgets and that sounds like for 2024.
So what I'm saying is this year we'll show it in unallocated revenues, but moving forward with the continuation of this grant, I would expect that the departments would then recognize those funds within their individual budgets moving forward. So from 2024 on.
All right, so for 2023, if we get the grant, it will pay in 2023.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Right. And then in the out years, it'll show up in target, but then if the grant continues, it deducts that amount from the local share.
It would go directly into the department's target. Yes.
All right. I've got Greg and then Randy,
So this really is like net zero for
2023. If we get
2023.
the grant.
The risk is if we don't get the grant, it's $172,000 expenditure, but all things being equal and known, it's net zero really because we're adding to revenue. We're also adding to expenses.
Presently, it seems like a low risk that we're not going to get the grant, according to the folks who've put this together and who've been doing this for a long time. So that's the only reason why we even recommended it.
So it's really net zero though.
On a good day.
Sure, plus or minus 10% amongst friends.
It's it's positive.
Yeah, at the time that we were building the budget, it was not known whether this was going to be an ongoing source of revenue. So we were paying for these positions 100% local. So it's a net positive this year, but it would be revenue neutral going forward.
Moving forward, right.
Thank you.
Randy?
I'm struggling with this, not because of the money. I know how that works. Strings attached when you get money from somebody for a specific purpose. Domestic terrorism, I don't like the definition and the emphasis on that, so I'm voting against it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Let's vote. Oh, Lee?
Just a clarification to Randy, I understand you, but that's how it's set up under the state and the federal allocations, and it's a targeted program under that name, and that's how it comes through DHSES. And understand your concern, but that's how they acquire the grant.
Okay. Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
No.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
13 ayes, 1 no. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, Mike Lane, OTR 27, delete funding income tax program being abandoned by AFCU to shift cost to county.
I thought after the presentation from the Human Services Coalition, which was very good, by the way, this proposal that came out of AFCU to the coalition to have the county take over the funding of the income tax prep program, which is a good program that AFCU started of his own initiative quite a few years ago. And the reason given was because it just didn't want to do it anymore. It wanted to do something else. And so it wanted the county taxpayers to pay the cost of this program. I think AFCU should continue to do it, or it should find another not-for-profit group that's willing to take it over and not to shift this cost to the county taxpayers. And so I would move that deletion.
Can I get a second from Randy? I'm really confused because I thought that what had happened here was that AFCU was asking for $20,000 for a different program that they were no longer going to provide the VITA program. Did I miss something? Cindy?
Hi again. So to clarify, the $20,000 that we requested was roughly the same amount of the support that the county has provided to the VITA program over the last couple of years.
Right.
This year, Alternatives informed us that they are not going to continue to manage the VITA program. So they kind of let it go.
Right.
The recommendation that the review committee made was to kind of hold that $20,000 in the case that we found another agency or organization to take the lead on the VITA program for this coming year. Unfortunately, we have not. We are unable to currently find an agency that's willing to take the lead primarily for timing purposes. The Alternatives program ended in April, and there just wasn't enough turnaround time to apply for an IRS grant that would actually supplement, significant costs of the program. So that didn't happen. And unfortunately, we are unable to secure a lead agency for this coming year. So that $20,000 and kind of set aside for an agency to take the lead, there is no agency to take the lead this year.
So basically, the delete funding for income tax program being abandoned by AFCU, period.
Yes.
Okay. Does that make sense, Mike?
Sure.
Okay.
If something comes back next year and they want to talk to us about it, we're willing to talk.
Yeah, it's a worthwhile program.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Does anybody have any questions about this? Greg and Annie.
Yeah, I don't have really a question, more of a statement. I think it's a real unfortunate situation. It's a shame. I mean, if you read in our book, section 5, page 17, for 2020, 1,600 people in Tompkins County, resulting in more than 3.8 million in federal and state refunds, more than 1.1 million in federal earned income tax credit payments, more than 970 in federal child tax credits, and more than 60,000 in federal education credits. I mean, that's huge economic impact for our community at a very low investment. And I think we really need, as legislators, if we can help, Cindy and her team try to lean on our relationships within the community to find somebody to help in this type of program, or multiple groups to help in this type of program. That's a huge amount of money back into the pockets, and it's a big amount of that's a large number of people impacted by a program like this. So I think it's worth noting. I think it's something that we should really make a priority in some way to try to help you with, Cindy. So I guess I would look to you to ask for help, because obviously if there's nobody to take on the program, makes no sense funding it right now. But I do think it's a program that should continue, because there's huge economic benefit and real financial benefit to many in our community.
Thank you. Annie?
Cindy, do you know how many years Alternatives Federal Credit Union was doing this? I mean, as far as I remember back, I just remember them doing this forever. But
Yeah, I don't know, several years. I don't know, but I can find out.
But you don't need to. I just wonder if you knew off the top of your head. I just wanted to say, as we've talked about this, I just wanted to publicly say to Alternatives Federal Credit Union, their board and their staff, that thank you for doing this for the many years that they've have done this. So we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Veronica?
I just wanted to say that our budget books have info about this in the appendix. Appendix E, page 37 says the program began in 2003.
2003.
Good to know.
19.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Dan?
I think I know the answer. I just want to double check. Cindy, do you have any objection then to us removing this funding?
I do not,
Okay, thank you.
but we'll probably be back next year asking for the same thing, because we are very hopeful that we will continue this program for all of the reasons that you presented tonight.
Thank you.
It sounds like that will be a welcome request, Cindy. Okay, are we ready to vote?
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
I have 13 ayes.
That passes.
Motion
Thank you.
passes.
Okay. Next, we have two different OTRs relating to Southside's food program. One to spend more and one to spend less. So I guess we'll start with the spend less one. That was filed by Mr. Mezzi and Mr. Brooks. I don't know which one of you want to address that, but go for it.
So we looked at the numbers that were given for the meals program. This is the 20 meals a day. It was through the grant that was received by GAVA. Just running through the numbers, it seemed like it was about 207 days of meals, and that GAVA charged themselves $13 per meal. We definitely want to support the program. Feeding people in this community is a huge priority. But we feel that, that's too much. We ran some numbers based on the child and adult food program. The national reimbursement for meals for youth and adults for lunches, dinners is $4. So we came up with the number that we used, thinking that Southside could add the 20 meals per day to the service, since they already cook meals for the after-school program. We've been told that they can't accommodate that, and so we're willing to increase this to 27,000, which would be half of what they asked for, but it would allow for $6.50 to be spent per meal roughly, which is $2.44 over the national reimbursement rate.
So I want to ask a question, because I ran the numbers on this, based on $54,000 representing $13 a person meals. So if you did the math, the recommended 25,000 was $6 a meal and the 10,000 reduced it to $3.60 a meal. And I think that your proposal now, which is 27,000 and the county administrator's recommendation, 25,000, I think what you all tried to do was hit a happy medium, and I'm certainly in favor of that. So I guess I don't know how to proceed. Do we want to discuss the possibility of accepting Veronica's proposal that we fund the whole $13, and then if that passes, then that passes. If it doesn't, then we can revisit whether or not and how much we want to debate this $2,000 difference. How's that? Okay.
Well, then figure it out.
I'm confused. So what Travis is proposing is again different than what's on this
Can you
sheet?
use
Yes.
the mic?
Travis is now proposing 27,000, which is half of what was requested.
Okay.
And the county administrator recommended 25. And Veronica wants the whole 54.
And I suggest we just make, it's all one OTR. And I don't hear anyone saying, I just hear different numbers for it. So could we just have it be one discussion about the OTR? And I, not in this moment, but we'll be wanting to amend this if that's a process we can use.
Well, they've already amended it once, but I guess since this isn't
Oh,
really
I see.
a resolution, the Roberts rules that say we can't amend it twice don't apply.
Only amend it once because these are an amendment to the budget.
Ah,
They
okay.
could come back with a different proposal, change it by $1 or something, but.
Well, they've already done that.
So just a point of information, nothing has been actually moved and seconded. So there's really no motion yet on the table to have been amended. I would agree with my colleague Travis, but I just want to procedurally point that out that.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion to change OTR number 23 to $27,000? Is that what you're doing, Travis?
Yes.
Okay, does someone want to second that? Greg seconds it. Okay, so let's talk about that one. And then, yes.
Point of information, when you say we can't amend twice, I know that I can't propose an amendment on this motion, but if the amendment to change this to $27,000 passes, does that mean we can't amend it further? Or could I just propose like an
I guess
additional?
you file another motion.
You can amend,
Because
Veronica.
he's moving moving the 27,000. So that's the first amendment. So you can still
Amend it
make
one
an
more time.
amendment.
You can make one more,
Oh.
you can make one more amendment to his amendment, but that's
That's
it.
it.
Okay, so now offer your amendment.
Great. I would like to move amending this to the 54,000,
Okay, is there, all right.
Full amount?
which is the full amount that the Human Services Coalition recommended.
All right. Is that friendly?
No.
Okay, so we need now to vote.
No, you need a
It has-
second
You
first.
need a second, okay. Is there a second for 54,000?
Can I make a case for it or we need a second?
You need a second.
I'll second it for the purposes of discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. So as I think Travis might have said, there was some math done under the assumption that Southside could add more meals into the capacity they're already doing. I apologize, this is right before the meeting, but to legislators, I sent out photos of Southside's kitchen right before this meeting. It is small. It works, I think, fine. I haven't seen it in use, but but they have one staff member who already cooks for over 60 kids and teens every day. And it's like they do not have extra capacity in the existing facility. And upgrading the kitchen is something they want to do, but that's not in the scope of what we're discussing here. And that would be a lot more money. I know that, Cindy Wilcox is here from HSC and Kayla Matos is here from Southside if you want to ask them more questions, but I know Kayla told me that she ran the numbers and hiring the extra, even part-time staff that it would take to cook these additional meals in the kitchen would cost about as much as they're asking. And I'd like to reaffirm that the Human Services Coalition is recommending to fund that. So I think we may as well, for 1 year, no, it's one-time funding, do it this way using the existing relationships they already have. Agava and Ithaca Bakery aren't random. It's because they already have a relationship doing this exact program with these restaurants. I think the other thing is just that, like Travis said, if we definitely want to support this program and if feeding people is important, I think we may as well do it now, starting in January, using the existing infrastructure and relationships. I think a really valuable thing about Southside is that it's a longstanding community institution with key relationships with communities that aren't necessarily connected in a nurturing, trusting way to other institutions from which they might get support or from which they might get food. Some of the folks, I know we mentioned loaves and fishes, but some of the folks, which I'd love for them to explore partnerships with, but some of the people getting fed at Southside were, for whatever reason, loaves and fishes wasn't working for them. Some of them are also get food from the Southside pantry, but that's not a hot meal. So the hot meal is added on to that. And so I just think this is such a valuable program and it is ready to go. I spoke with a couple of people from the Human Services Coalition earlier today, and they were, or one of the members of the voting committee suggested, and I would support this, thinking about this request as a pilot program. I know the program already started, but funding it for the year at the level that these two institutions have suggested makes sense. And during this time, explore ways, they're already starting to do this, but explore ways to accomplish the same goal, feeding people feeding these people nutritious good meals for cheaper. One reason I'd like to fund this now instead of wait for them to figure it out first and then fund it is I think it's easier to figure this stuff out when you're maintaining these relationships by offering food. People show up for food and you can go from there.
I've got Travis, Annie, Amanda, and Mike.
So just so a few things are clear, the amount that we amended to 27,000 recognizes already in the amendment that Southside can't prepare these meals. So it takes the reimbursement from $3 to $6.50. It's great that Agava was able to secure a grant and do this last year, but Agava paid themselves $13 per meal, which is quite a bit. We are asking this to come out of taxpayer money, and I'm cool with that. I believe that it's a good program. People are eating, and you can never have enough folks eating in this community. So I'm cool with continuing the program. They've had a year now to see if they could find folks that would do this at a much more reasonable rate. $6.50 is still $2.44 over the national reimbursement rate. And I think that talking to a few restaurants, maybe even Agava themselves, because they still will make more than cost on those meals, would probably be willing to produce these meals at $6.50.
Thanks, Travis. Annie.
I think that trying to find somebody, whether it's Agava or the other restaurant or some organization to prepare these meals for less amount of money is something that should be done within the next couple of months, just because of the the cost, I mean, to me, that's similar to the cost that it would cost somebody to just, to pay, market rate. And so we're talking about bulk meals, and this is a service to the community. So I'm gonna support, this resolution or this amendment. I'm not this amendment,
Original motion.
the original motion I will support.
Okay, but we're addressing the amendment that Veronica has proposed right now. So Amanda,
I'll pass.
Mike Sigler.
Just one thing, I mean, I'm definitely voting for this, for the simple fact that I think kids eating, how do you kind of vote against that? I will mention though that I have asked our Lansing
That's
lunch.
not,
What?
you're talking, we're not talking about
Which,
kids.
what are you,
The meals that we were just talking about.
at what price level, Mike?
It's
At
not-
Veronica's?
I was going to go with the 27,000.
Okay,
but
we're addressing, I'm
It
just,
doesn't really matter, but the
Fine.
entirety of the, okay, fine, I'll wait. You can come back to me.
okay, because first we have to vote on Veronica's proposed amendment. All right, does anybody want to address Veronica's proposed, Greg?
Sorry, the only reason, the reason I don't necessarily support this amendment is I would, if we're going to fund at that amount, I would like to see there be more of a concerted effort to seek an RFP or some sort of request for participation proposal from community organizations that would participate in, or restaurants or food providers, food trucks, whatever the case may be. I'd like to see this opened up so that people could support a bid and say, hey, yeah, we can cook meals for $650. We can cook a meal for $550. I'd be happy to support it at $100,000 if there was a program that was a little bit more than here's just one or two entities that have created a program to fund themselves. That's where my real objection comes, because I don't think that this opens it up to the broader community to participate in a way that allows people to be competitive, so that we can maximize the dollars that we're spending through the county. But I think people need to eat, and whatever way this amendment goes, I definitely will be supporting this.
Okay, so now we're going to vote on 54,000.
Shauna Black.
Sorry, no.
Travis Brooks.
No.
Randy Brown.
No.
Amanda Champion.
No.
Henry Grandison.
No.
Rich John.
No.
Dan Klein.
No.
Ann Corman.
No.
Mike Lane.
No.
Greg Mezzi.
No.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
No.
Mike Sigler.
No.
Deborah Dawson.
No. Okay,
1 aye, 13 noes, motion fails.
now we're back to 27. And now, Mike Sigler, I want to hear about why you want to support this, and then have Annie tell you that you're on the wrong track.
Well, it's not a kid, it's not for kids' meals.
It's not for kids' meals, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to vote for it because I think people need to eat. The meal is fine. I do want to make you aware, I considering, I didn't know we'd really be considering things like this. So I've reached out to the Lansing Lunchbox. I mean, they provide meals as well. I've asked them if they could use county support. I will wait back from Susan DeBreezy to find out if they would be interested. So I would expect if she gets back to me and that there'll be an OTR for the Lansing Lunchbox.
Oh, good, we need another one.
This is, and why is that? In part because I think this benefits mostly people that live in the city, right? Children who live in the city who are our constituents, and we need to take care of them. Just coming back to the homeless issue, those people are also living in the city, but are also county responsibility. So that's about it. Thanks.
All right, anybody else? Dan?
I could just use a little bit of context. I'm a little lost on where this recommendation came from and if it got modified by you, how long could you trace this for me?
From the time the OTR was submitted to,
Well,
It
it's
came through HSC, did it not?
correct?
as part of their package of recommendations. And
That's
what was their original dollar figure recommendation?
The 54,000.
Okay,
Section 5, page 18.
thank you. And then did you modify it?
I modified it to 25,000.
Now it's 27,000. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Veronica?
Not to put you on the spot, Kayla, but did you want to answer some of the speculation that we've been talking about like what restaurants you would work with and
Yeah.
what you have to do?
Per the last time I was up here, I did say that we were open to other partnerships. However, since we had developed a relationship with Ithaca Bakery and Agava, those were the ones that we would naturally go to. On top of that, most of you guys probably aren't aware, the food bank literally, Ithaca released an article where they met with the food bank of the Southern Tier's president. And they talked about how this year alone, the first 2 quarters, there has been a 35% food increase, need in food. And food bank alone cannot handle that. When we're also looking at $13 a meal, we also have to look at the quality of the food that they were getting. They're not getting regular school lunches. They're literally getting salmon, they're getting steak, they're getting pulled pork. They're actually feeling like humans, which a lot of the times don't tend to happen when you go to food bank or pantries. A lot of the times they're giving low quality food. They're giving bruised fruits. They're giving brown vegetables. They're giving almost expired meat. So this initiative, really, restaurants and community centers coming together to provide these meals to our community that needs the underserved community is actually huge. And it might not be making an impact on a large scale, but it's making an impact to some. And if you guys have any other further questions, I am willing to answer. But also, like Veronica said, if we were to hire a cook, that alone would cost us, we are committed to living wage. It would cost us roughly $25,000. I would also like to add that the county alone is giving us $19,000 a year to support our operation costs. And you guys are only increasing that by $6,000 and then expecting us to run a hot meal program on that. Thank you.
Veronica?
Yeah, thanks. Can I read ahead? I don't know what y'all are getting at Agava for $13 when you go there, but I spend a lot more when I there. And then just for comparison, I maybe this is just me being a little mad about the whole, but we purchase materials from for-profit businesses who are profiting all the time with county funds. At least I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know where we're getting binder clips, if not for that. And just for a little comparison, I know it's not quite the same, but I just, earlier today, Amanda informed me of the new, or what's going to be the new like travel meal reimbursement rates for say us when we're traveling, which is $18 for a lunch and $34 for a dinner. So we could at least acknowledge that when we're quibbling over $13 for a dinner. Thanks.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Amanda?
I just want to clarify, I feel like if I'm understanding the big spreadsheet correctly, I had written down that Lisa had marked this to come out of ARPA funds. Is that correct?
Yeah, one time,
One time.
because they're one time.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Are we ready to vote?
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtlip,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
14 ayes, motion passes.
Okay, moving on. Now we have an OTR for Mr. Mezzi. Take it away.
Yeah, so this is the reallocation of the 10% that the county takes out of the current SCPB budget for essentially general county administration. Lisa, is that a fair way to summarize that 10%?
No, that's not what this says. It says that you want to take Nick Helmholtz's salary.
Yeah, I was given a little
Oh, okay.
sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so essentially what I want to do is I want to take the principal planner, tourism program director position salary out of a direct line item of the STP budget and put it in the 10% that the county takes out of the room tax for county administration. I think that the principal planner, while supports the tourism program extensively at a majority or significant portion of the salary, it's also, I think that just there's a lot of those funds go to unallocated revenue. I think this is an opportunity to put more money back into the tourism program, which we're seeing a tremendous return on those dollars. We're seeing some of the higher room tax quarters that we've ever seen. We continue to set records in room tax collection, which also means that the county's portion of the 10% is also going up because that's not a fixed amount, that's a sliding scale. So I would like to see that position's salary come out of the 10% so that we can have more money put into the tourism program budget for arts and culture programming, marketing and promotion funding.
Do I have a second? I assume you're moving that. Okay. Sigler, you're seconding. Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns? Mike, and then Randy.
I hear what you're saying, Greg, and I understand that you'd like to see more money for promotion. We spend a lot of money for promotion already. What this would do would be to shift the cost from the room tax to the real property tax. And yeah.
Well, no, but the 10% is coming out of room tax. It would shift other costs that we're paying for unallocated revenue onto the property tax, not this revenue. It would just, this portion is still paid for by room tax. It's just saying that there's now a $115,000 deficit in unallocated revenue. And that's where we would have to ask what's getting put back on.
Well, yeah, but that has to be made up. If we aren't getting it from unallocated revenue from the STPB money, we're going to have to shore it up with county taxpayer money, real property taxpayer money. We raided STPB's money a number of years ago when we had the Great Recession to help support TCAD, arguing that the Tompkins County Area Development, which is now Ithaca something, was an economic development driver and ought to be supported by the tourism industry as well. I thought that was a terrible idea, but it was the recommendation of the county administrator then, and also the choice of the majority of the legislature.
Since corrected.
I know, and that's the good thing, and that's what I wanted to say. Was it 2 years ago we made that change and took that money
2018
out of the real property tax and put it back and no longer charged the tourism money for that. And that was the right thing to do. That was they weren't expecting it that year. And it was sort of a found money for that program. And I'm glad we did that because I think economic development should be paid for from the general fund of Tompkins County. I've said that for years and years. And so I don't think that it makes a lot of sense now to take away the county's portion of the room tax, which we use for administration and we plan on as part of our unallocated revenues, take that away from us and charge and simply give it back to the program to be spent as they will. I think we've been fair with them, and I don't think this is unfair that we continue to charge the 15% for the unallocated revenues.
10%.
Yeah, 10%, 10% plus
Sorry,
Nick,
10%.
plus Nick's salary. Okay, anybody else? Randy?
I agree with some of what Mike said. I support the arts programs and that's good, but it's a big amount of money that they're pulling in now. It's going to be 3.3 million this year. Is that what it's going to end up being for?
Yes.
Roughly?
Yes.
So it's a lot of money. I'd like to know first if we're getting a good bang for our buck. I think the people that are managing the program are doing a great job. I think 1.6 million, this goes to the chamber. Is that correct?
To look, but yeah,
Okay.
they receive a,
And I mean, people are going to build here no matter what, it seems. I mean, Ithaca is what it is. So I don't support it. So I would support, however, applying to increase the hotel tax.
I think that was considered back in 2012. And at the time, there was only maybe one county in upstate New York that had a 5.5% hotel tax, and ours is 5%.
I don't think
And
that's going to stop anybody from coming here.
I think we're at the state limit.
are we?
That's my understanding.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dan. Dan probably knows as much about this as anybody.
5% is, that was my understanding.
I think
but
New York
could be
City
wrong.
can charge a little more.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm opposed to this. I think most grant programs include a fairly substantial amount for administration. And I view Nick's role as administration of basically something akin to a grant program. I can't justify taking taxpayer money to pay to support tourism and hospitality. I mean, I know that it brings money in, but the jobs that it creates are generally low paying.
Jobs.
I'm sorry?
They're jobs.
They're jobs, but
Not
if they're
discount.
jobs that somebody has to work 2 or 3 jobs in order to get by, they're not great jobs. I mean,
Sorry, I'm going to take personal offense to that, having worked in this industry. They can be incredible jobs. They are jobs that put people through school. They are jobs that put food on people's tables. They are jobs that clothe and educate kids. They're admirable jobs. They're respectable jobs.
I'm not
There's nothing wrong
denigrating
with
the
tourism
nature of
jobs.
the work that's done. I'm commenting on the fact that it's generally not very well compensated. So anyway, I'm opposed to this. Does anybody else have comments on this?
Just a question. Where do we sit with the tourism dollars, the hotel tax? Is it up over previous years? Are we trending higher than
Considerably.
the?
You missed a BCP today, but Rick
I'm sorry.
Snyder reported, no, I understand. Nobody's holding you that against you. But Rick Snyder reported that the last 2 quarters have been the highest by far that we've ever had in terms of hotel tax revenue.
Perhaps we should consider raising that and in the revenues for the budget and allocating a touch more toward tourism.
What? I don't understand what you mean.
Perhaps we should show the tax at higher than what's been budgeted and allocate an additional amount toward tourism the year ahead.
I'm not sure I understand what that would look like, but maybe Norma can address
Revenue
that.
neutral, but it covers the, I think where Greg is going with this is that he would like to see more funding put toward tourist initiatives and less toward less percentage overall than what is put toward administration of it. Is that a means of doing so and reflecting the reality of what's come into the hotel monies this year?
Well, there's the 10%, which increases or decreases as the revenues increase or decrease. Nick's salary, on the other hand, stays the same. So reallocating Nick's salary really isn't having much of an impact on whether or not there's more hotel tax in some objective sense available for promoting tourism.
Logistically, we're basically just we're basically just funding his position with target funds, and the unallocated revenues do what they do at 10%. As the room tax increases, the unallocated revenues portion, that 10% would increase as well. But this proposal is basically paying for next position with tax dollars.
Right.
Okay, any other questions?
I'm just going to make one more comment.
Sure.
I think it's important that many of my colleagues have drawn the distinction about, not sort of bridging that gap between room tax and other tax and property tax. We are taking room tax and we are funding initiatives outside of what the room tax was set up for. I just want to make sure that that's on the record with that 10%, with that unallocated revenue. We are funding non-initiatives. So we are reaching in, we're breaching that line, because if you look at the allocation that goes to finance and accounting and some of the other departments, which support, the grant and the administration of the program, is a small amount of that 10%, and then the rest go to unallocated revenue. So we're already crossing that line.
State law permits us to cross that line.
I know, I'm just saying, as many of my colleagues have made points to the room tax, just wanted to point that out, that we're already doing that. If we're allowed to or not, that's great. I just think that this is a way where, as that 10% continues to rise, even if it was 50% of the position's pay that came out, this is a way to put more money back into the arts and culture community, which is sorely underfunded in our county.
Shauna Black,
No.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
No.
Amanda Campion,
No.
Henry Dennison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Klein,
No.
Ann Corman,
No.
Somebody turn your speaker off, please.
Can you mute, please?
Okay, go ahead.
Mike Lane,
I'm a no.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
No.
Deborah Dawson,
No.
I have 6 ayes and 8 noes. Motion failed.
Thank you. Okay, Greg, you're up next with the library security.
Oh, yeah. So this, as you see, we just want to change this to one time from target. We'd also asked the sheriff and county administration to develop a plan and strategy for the security needs of all of the downtown facilities. And this also helps, I think, Norma, correct me if I'm wrong, but the maintenance of effort that we would have if we put this in target for the library's budget going forward. So by all means, support additional security, but would just look, and Lee, step in if I'm saying something, because this was from Lee and I. We'd just like to see this as one time and make sure that we can continue to evaluate the security needs at that facility.
Okay, can I get a second? Travis, thank you. Okay, Mike, were you seconding or raising your hand?
Seconding.
Okay. Dan, were you seconding or?
No, I wanted to speak when you're ready.
Okay, Dan and then Amanda and then Lee.
So as I read the accompanying material, it seemed to say that you wanted to take a comprehensive look at security in all the downtown buildings. Lisa, I would like to hear your comments on how this fits in with what you're thinking.
So we're actually in the midst of doing that, or at least in the very first stages of it. We've been doing building security assessments, meeting with departmental leadership and staff and union representatives, facilities, county admin for all of our buildings. It's been, Bridget Nugent has headed that up. It's been 30 some odd meetings. We are looking at some more centralized and standardized policies and procedures regarding building security. But we've not yet reached the threshold of looking at security staffing at each building. I mean, we've started seeing the immediate need at Human Services building. So that's, we are in the midst of doing this, and we're also hiring a new employee health and safety coordinator. As you know, that position will be centralized in county admin. So I do think that there is certainly value in centralizing and taking a more standardized approach and relooking at all of our building security needs.
And one more question, is our current library security a county employees?
No, they are using a contracted security company, and their request this year was to upgrade because their previous security company, there was staffing issues for keeping that fully staffed.
Thank you. Amanda?
Yeah, thanks. I would just note that Teresa Vatican, the interim director, is here, and so is Ingrid Jensen, the one of the co-presidents of the board, if you have other questions. I guess I don't understand this. I mean, it seems to be that you're saying we'll give them funding this year, but next year, we sure hope that we have a better plan and that maybe we'll have a deputy in there every day. I mean, there needs to be someone in the building every single day.
No question about it. We're just saying that funding shouldn't be put into target, and we should continue to evaluate the security concerns and how we address that as a county at a broader scale. So if it becomes a retired deputy, if the best is to contract that out for the library, by all means. But we're just saying with everything in the current climate with our downtown facilities, put this into target, not put this into target and put this into one time. We can always evaluate it next year as well if there's additional security.
The only reason this is coming up now, though, is because they switched firms or agencies or whatever. And so it has been in target for years and years and years. That it's not, I mean, this is something that they need to fund. And I understand that you're saying, you know, you want IPD to do more work, you want the sheriffs to do more work, but it seems a little short-sighted to say that a year from now, we're going to have a whole new safety plan. I mean, we haven't even debated, or we tried to debate, and we didn't get anywhere with adding 2 new sheriff's deputies. So you're going to need a lot more staffing with the police departments to have someone in those buildings all the time. And we've been trying to negotiate for ages to get somebody in the human services building. So
that's a little bit of a misconception that it's just going to be IPD or the sheriff's department. It could be contract security as it's requested.
That's what they are doing.
Sure, but we're saying rather than bake in that additional charge into target, put it into one time and let's evaluate how that goes and then see if that's the right course to go moving forward.
Okay, well, I don't agree with that. I think that we've been assisting them with this funding for, I mean, maybe Teresa or Ingrid could say, but to suddenly say we're not going to go forward continuing with this funding seems like you're pulling the rug out from under them.
Lee and then Shauna.
I don't believe that's the case, Amanda, but it's ensuring that you do have that coverage, but it's consistent with the action that we took on the Human Services building just a few months ago, that we would be returning to it. And it would be part of the broader discussion with the city about the public safety problems downtown. This request may be the start of many buildings coming forward stating that they need public safety or security assistance. And I think it's best as we consider the numerous initiatives on our downtown buildings that we take an overall holistic look at providing security, and perhaps maybe a security division within the sheriff's office is where we may end up, at least looking at it from a standpoint, is there funding that would support it from outside revenue sources? So I'm not against having security at the library. I'm against having the maintenance of effort built into the budget when we've got a broader look that we can take at security for our downtown employees and clients.
Can I clarify something? When we add something to target, at some point in the future, if it's no longer needed, it's not baked into the extent that we can't take it out, is it? It is?
In the library's budget, it is built into their maintenance of effort. And by the rule, the state rule, it says that you can't go below 95% of what you have without going against the maintenance of effort.
Okay, so the library is a special case.
The library is, yes.
And that seems to be what's driving your proposal. Okay. All right, so I have Shauna, Mike Sigler, and then Annie.
I feel like this is just kicking the can down the road. I mean, I feel like we're forever going to have to provide security for these buildings moving forward. Due to the situation downtown. I think someone mentioned having the Ithaca police go in there, and let's very much so be honest. I mean, the city's not even willing to allocate 15,000 for our library to stay open on Sundays. So I very seriously doubt that they're willing to put an overstretched police department on duty as security in the library. The second thing, I think we absolutely need a study. And I understand what Greg and Lee are trying to do. They're trying to take this out of target so that it doesn't hit our tax levy. And while I appreciate that approach, I think we definitely need to keep this on target, because it's something in the foreseeable future that we are going to have to continue to take care of. If people don't feel safe in our libraries, they're not going to go. And I think more and more we're seeing people that are using on street corners. We're seeing it in the library, and we need to make sure that that's a safe space for people that are entering. So I do not want to see this leave Target. I think that it's our duty to keep the library safe, and that's the one way we can do it.
Thank you. Mike.
Mine was more of a question. You guys might remember this. One of the impetuses of us adding the community policing downtown, somebody on the commons.
Outreach coordinator.
You remember? Okay. Wasn't that part of the whole library and securing the library? I mean, what's the status of that? I mean, we still have that person, I assume, right?
Maybe Teresa wants to answer.
You're talking about the community outreach worker?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on call, but like they can't they're not here to make our building safe. Basically, we call them when there's a person experiencing homelessness or a person that needs services, and they're there to refer them to the services they need or bring them a warm sleeping bag. So that's the kind of thing we make the call to the community outreach workers for. But they're I can't remember their exact client base, but they're really very busy. So they come over when we call. But yeah, it couldn't replace the security that we currently need in the library.
And if I may add, and thanks so much for having us, I think it's up to the legislature whether you do this as a one-time and continue to study or keep it in target. We'll defer to your expertise. But I think the situation at the library is not just about sort of downtown crime or people who might be around. The library's actually had in-building security for 20 years. It's a normal part of operations. Libraries are unique in that they're often under threat. As an example, this year, library staff received intense death threats and intimidation from around the county, not limited to downtown, in response to LGBTQ plus oriented programming. And this is something we're seeing nationally. So the security is of course to keep patrons safe. It is also to keep staff safe and retain staff. And I think that is something that's a little bit unique about the library and why security is needed. It's sad that in 2022 we have to face these kinds of issues, but it is our reality.
Thank you, Ingrid. I had no idea, and it's just really depressing. Okay, Annie and Amanda.
Thank you. And I had heard about those threats, and I'm sorry for that you've had those, the threats. So first question, how long is your contract with the new firm for the security services?
I believe currently it's 1 year, but I could double check on that.
Okay, so just wondering if I guess to me, then it doesn't, trying to figure this out. Whether this passes or not, whether we could, because we do have to look at, other financial issues that are unique, to the library. If this is something that we could look at, commit to look at holistically anyway, and just continue the way we were, because if it's 1 year or 2 years or whatever your contract is, then if it's 2 years, I wouldn't want you to not have your 2-year contract if that's what you've needed to do. But we look at it anyway, so I don't know how administration or other legislators felt about that, whether it passed or not.
Well, I will say this is more about how we fund it rather than whether we fund it. And, there are valid concerns on both sides. I don't get the impression that Greg and Lee are saying we're only going to fund this for 1 year, and then no matter what happens, we're not going to fund it. So, and given the special circumstances around library funding, maybe that's a good thing. Because we can revisit this next year. And if it turns out that we're a year down the road and we are no closer to being able to provide a holistic approach to building security downtown, then we simply pay this $57,000 for another year. At least that's the way I see it. But I'm sure there's 14 different opinions. So, Amanda?
I'm sure there's more than 14 opinions. Yeah, I feel like I think a year from now, we're not going to have a solid approach to the whole downtown bigger picture. I think that makes sense. We should pursue that. We are pursuing that. But to have that study or that work done and compiled, it's not going to be something is going to be in place next year. I guess, as I said before, this just means the library is going to have to come back to us next year and say, can we have this funding for our security again? And if we're all agreeing that we're going to fund the security, let's just go ahead and fund it as we have been for all these years. This is just, more this time around, and I'll stop. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Let's vote.
Shauna Black.
No.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
No.
Henry Grandison.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
No.
Ann Corman.
No.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
No.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
No.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Eight ayes and 6 noes. Motion passes.
Okay. We have another proposal from Mr. Mezzi and Mr. Shirtliff concerning the library. Take it away.
Yeah, I promise, if you read an OTR, we are supporters and fans of libraries and the important work that they do. Contrary to the look you're giving me, Amanda, yes, it is true. We do support them. This, I think strategically, we would like this, and I would even be fine if somebody wanted to propose putting this in contingency fund, but I think there's an opportunity as a new director comes in and as any new director takes over, there's an opportunity for that position to shape the way they'd like to see the library or the department set up. So before adding 3 additional positions, we just wanted to see we're so close potentially, hopefully, on a new library, a permanent library director, to give that person an opportunity to look at the staffing. The 5 FTE reclassifications, which is about 41,400. I don't want to speak for Lee, but I would be open to seeing that put back in there for those reclassifications. But really would just like to see this sort of put on hold a little bit to the new library director could make a full assessment on what the needs or the direction of the library should be moving forward.
And I gather you're moving this and Mr. Shirtliff is seconding it. And Lee, did you want to speak to this?
Just a couple of points. I understand the library, as did many of our agencies and departments, took a hit during the pandemic and with the reductions a few years ago. Over 2 years, we've seen it restored from $3.2 million net local to a target this year of 3.7. So we've done a pretty good job here getting things back toward where they were, and appreciate the effort. I listened intently to questions by my colleagues about having city support for the library. And as we've been rebuffed in other fronts, that continues to be the case. But I go back to some words I hear a few minutes ago. If we really want the city to participate and they know that we're willing to spend it, there's no incentive for them to step up. And I think that by continually by adding these positions, especially at a time when you're going to have a change in administration, you've taken any incentive for others to participate off the table. So, and to Greg's point, I'm open to a different approach, but to increase the target at this point in time on top of $500,000 that's been added to the net local share in 2 years. I got a tough time with that. Thanks.
Teresa, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on the need for these positions because you know far more about this than anybody sitting in this room.
Yeah, so I've been at TCPL for about 9 years. I was here before the pandemic started, and our level of staffing was at 43. We are now at 40. So we're just trying to get back to the level of staffing pre-COVID. We have seen an increase in door count, circulation, programming that's close to pre-pandemic levels. We are required to be open 60 hours a week. And I really do feel a need for the staffing that we used to have to staff the service desks and the leadership team. We've talked a lot about this, and we all agree that getting back to that level would be really helpful. And I mentioned it in the presentation, but outreach is such an important part of a public library. And to do the best that we could do with that, I think we need that additional staffing. But thank you for all your support. And Ingrid, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. I mean, I would say, I think it's a really valid question. And I appreciate that you're thinking about the fact that a new director will be coming in, because normally you wouldn't want to be advocating for big changes or new positions, because you're right. You would want the new leader to be able to assess. I think this situation is different because it's a restoration of pre-pandemic positions. And we've seen the needs for the library services and some of the services that were developed during the pandemic become so essential, such as curbside pickup, book bundles, libraries by mail, that we really need to get back to these positions to sustain these new initiatives. We have a very actively engaged board. So we know what the library needs, and the leadership team, including Teresa combined, has about 80 years experience at TCPL. They know what the library needs, and a new director is not going to shift those needs. We continue to be strategic and smart about money wherever we can be. We're moving forward. I'm really excited to report that we just wrapped up one of our 2 union negotiations with our Professional Staff Association contract, and they successfully agreed, and we have all signed to move to the Platinum Health Insurance Plan. We know that's been a big priority for the county. We're excited about it. That is money that is helping us with create opportunities for other things we need. So again, we're working really hard. We're really engaged to be smart with the county's resources, but these are positions that the need is there, and that's not going to change with a new director.
Thank you, Teresa and Ingrid. Sean, I see your hand.
Yeah, so I will continue to support the library. I think it continues to be a lifeline in our community. I remember whenever my kids were little, and every Tuesday and Thursday, you guys used to have story hour at 10 a.m. Used to be in the community room. My kids would run back and forth, and I swear they didn't pay attention to any of it, but it was kind of my time to connect with other moms. And just the other day, we were driving in the car. My daughter's like, remember that little room in the library that has the trees on it? And, I was like, I didn't even think that you remembered any of that. And so, I think for young moms, for young families, it really is, maybe the one time, the 2 times a week that people get out of the house and create community. And I mean, this is an investment that we continuously make in our community and in our people. And I think it's well worth it. So I will be supporting this.
Yeah, and I would want to remind everybody that given the problems that we have with broadband throughout the county, the library's ability to make access to the internet available to people who otherwise might not have it is becoming more important than ever. Okay, I've got Mike Lane and Amanda.
Yes, I'm glad Teresa and Ingrid reminded us of the pressures that staff are under during these difficult times that we're in. Libraries and librarians are under attack around the country by groups that want them to remove books because they don't happen to be in sync with that group's political or religious bent. They have situations where they've attacked programming. We've heard that from other library directors very recently in the area. The LGBTQ attacks over programming that has been done in some of the libraries has been pretty sad that it's happened. So let's not forget that. So they are under that stress. But what I would like to do is ask Lisa. Lisa, you recommended this. And when I looked at it, I raised my eyebrow because I said, what is it that a request for 2 more employees? What was it about that tipped it for you to recommend it?
So originally, when we were, as we were developing the budget, we did not have the funding immediately to move this forward. And then when we found the funding, I thought just because of the service they provide to the community and the restoration of previous funding that we had afforded them in the past, those were my reasons for moving it forward.
Okay, thanks. I'm not going to support this change.
Amanda.
Well, I think folks have said it more eloquently than and I really appreciate Teresa and Ingrid being here and sharing their thoughts. I guess I tend to feel like your proposal really undermines the staff that we currently have. And they have been working in this library for many years. They know the needs. They've talked through the needs with our county administrator. The board is, as Ingrid said, very active and very involved. And this isn't just sort of a whim of, hey, let's add a couple more people. They're just trying to get back to what they had before. And we've done that for pretty much all our departments. We've really brought them back to pre-pandemic funding, and we did that right away. We didn't even wait. And now it's been a couple of years, and the library has been very patient in, doing the best that they can do with the resources they have. And now I think it's time for us to keep, building them back up. So I obviously will not be supporting this change.
Teresa, I see your hand. Is that a new hand or an old hand?
It's a new hand. I just wanted to mention, because you talked about the digital divide in broadband. We really are targeting that. We have gotten hotspots to our library of things. They're circulating so well that we are adding more. And that allows people that don't have internet at home to bring it to their house and access internet. I also know we do a lot of digital training and technology training. We help seniors that aren't familiar with technology, aren't comfortable with it. We have one-on-one specifically to help them get through, and we constantly are getting complimented and thanked for those services. So I just wanted to mention that about the digital divide, because it has grown exponentially with COVID, and I think the library has done a really good job at handling that and addressing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy.
Yeah, I have mixed thoughts about this. Veronica and I did tour the library, and it was great that we did that, and it was good, Teresa, for taking us around. We appreciate that. And one of the things I remembered, I thought that you were helping people do their taxes. Wasn't there something like that there? So there is a place that taxes were being done, I thought.
Yes, yeah, we have Alternatives Federal Credit Union. We partner with them, and they come in every winter and do the taxes. And we did it in the Borg Warner room this year, so people could socially distance, and it's very popular.
So that's what you'll be losing then. Okay, that's where they're housed. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah,
So,
they've
yeah, what
decided not to do that anymore, Teresa.
Yeah,
That's too bad.
my issue is it's a big increase. And we gave the rural libraries 3%. This is 11%, isn't it? Something like that. It's a big change. And the rural libraries use the 3% was not much money. I think it was like $11,000, $12,000. It wasn't a lot of money. In my district, Enfield is starting a library, and they don't get any funding because they're not technically a library. But the rural libraries do a lot of services, and they're important, and they work closely with Thompson County Library as well. I believe that if memory serves, 60% of the people who use the Thompson County Library are city or town people. I'm not sure that's the right number or not, but that's the number I was told. And not a lot of Newfield people do come down there, but they do use the mailing book program is quite popular in Newfield and Enfield. So I'm on the fence here. So thanks.
Greg.
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion, and it's not, and Teresa and Ingrid, please, it's not to undermine the breadth of experience and the great work that the folks at the library are doing. It's a large number, and we're entrusted to challenge the numbers that are put forward to us and make sure that it's the right investment in the community. And I think that's where Lee and I were coming from. Not that we don't support this. I think the last sentence there says we would support this in the future. So I hope you don't take it personally, but I know that I view it as our job to challenge some of those assumptions. And the biggest thing that sort of stood out in this one, the idea of restoration, our times have changed and evolved. So I would hope that as we continue to look at staffing increases, we could use the term of this is the staffing level required for our current situation, as opposed to restoration of staffing, because times have changed, things are different. And that was just one thing. Again, it's semantics, maybe a little bit, but just because we had in the past doesn't mean we need to have in the future. It may mean that we should have in the future, but I think it's a really important distinction that just because something was the way it was in the past doesn't mean it's going to be that same way in the future. But however this goes down, there's definitely a fan of the work that you do, and I think the votes are where they need to be. So I think we should maybe take a vote unless there's any other comments.
Well, yes, there are Veronica and Annie, and then we will vote.
Thanks. I totally hear you on the restoration, and I wanted to comment on actually what made up the bulk of the library's text in the OTR request, which is that the library has really changed in the last few years. Maybe it has been all before, and I think we heard that from Teresa and Ingrid. Thank you, that it's been adapting to the need for hybrid things to the pandemic and just like expanding its services. Like they have a revamped or like a new teen area. They have a maker space that I bet would, if it were open more, I bet it would get more users. I'm not saying you have to do that. The books by mail thing, like what the library is now is not the same as what it was in the past. Like it is a bigger thing. It is a different thing. It is a more multifaceted thing. And so I think it makes sense that it should end up with more money to do more things.
Thank you, Veronica. Annie?
Thank you. So pre-pandemic, I'm looking at Norma here. So that would be 2019, right? Were you able to access the numbers for 2019 in the, if you're not, that's okay. Because in our book here on 5-38, we have just back to 2020, 21, and 22. Because I'm just wondering what is the increase compared to that if we're looking at pre-pandemic, just because someone mentioned.
I don't know if we have the number. I do know that pre-pandemic, we were at 43.1 FTE. And now we're at 40. And I absolutely hear and agree what you're saying about restoration. That's probably a shorthand that doesn't accurately describe it, because for many years, the library was supported for 49 employees. And I really think that to the point that was so eloquently made earlier about really thinking about what you have now and what your needs are now, that the library has done that. And I don't think any of us, I know this legislature asked Teresa that in her presentation, do you envision coming back to us in a year for more? And she said no. And I believe that to be true too on the board. So we've been smart about using technology and combining positions and shifting priorities and meeting the needs of the moment so that we can offer more with fewer staff than we historically had for many, many years. So it's not a restoration in that sense, if that helps.
And I just want to mention one thing about the city card holders, because I did some, I looked it up. 13,000 out of our 38,000 card holders are city residents. So that comes to about 20-something%. I'm trying to figure it out right now. And so it's not 60%. I just wanted to mention that.
I'm not sure it matters because the city clearly isn't willing to pay for what it regards as a county library,
Have that number if you want me.
Oh, yes, please.
Was 3,618,751 was the budget in 2019.
Can you say that again?
3,618,751, 3,618,751.
So not much lower than what we're asking for this year. And that takes into account inflation and everything else. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready to vote?
Shauna Black.
No.
Travis Brooks.
No.
Randy Brown.
No.
Amanda Champion. Henry Grandison. Henry Grandison. Rich John.
No.
Dan Klein.
No.
Ann Corman.
No.
Mike Lane.
No.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
No.
Lee Shartliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
No.
Deborah Dawson.
No.
11 noes, 2 ayes. Motion fails.
Okay, thank you. All right, people. So here's the deal. We've still got a dozen OTRs to get through. If it was 1 or 2, I would try to keep you a bit longer and try to be done tonight, but I don't think that's going to happen. Mike?
At the list, the very next one is for the Human Service. I'm sorry, it's Human Rights Office. Never mind. I'm
Okay.
mistaken.
All right, so Norma?
I just need to comply with Kathy Covert. So I just want to make sure that we have it clear on for that OTR for the homeless outreach coordinator. that the personal services are 67. I can't see that screen. So 766, that the fringe was 29,932, and that the balance was put into program expense, 2,302.
Okay, so it's 100.
It hasn't changed. I just wanted to be on the record that that's how it was divided.
Okay.
Okay.
Greg, are you waggling your hand or did you want to speak?
I was playing with my pen, but Ken Clark is on and I know he's been waiting the whole time. I didn't know if it made sense to just do that one. I know the sheriff and Jen have also been on, but I know that they've sat through this.
Well, we can certainly consider Ken Clark's, and if you're really crispy, we might be able to do another one, but okay. So this is Shauna's.
Yeah. So I brought this forth. I know that there was a budget of 40,000 in, I believe, a previous year. And, you know, I think what I wasn't aware of also in previous years was the amount that we were paying some of our speakers. And whenever I heard that amount, I was somewhat shocked because it would have, I'm not sure I would have approved it in previous years had I recognized that. And so I wanted to reduce the amount from 40,000 to 20,000.
Okay, so that's the motion. And Randy, are you seconding? Okay, discussion. Well, Annie.
I wanted to say that we, or at least myself, I'll speak for that. I'd like to see more diverse or an assortment of different programs coming from that department, and possibly a less emphasis or at least less money spent for the speaker series. So that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I don't know if the remedy here is to reduce the amount of the budget or to let our director know that we have questions about how much is being spent for the program and should it be spent for other ways. So I would not, I realize, slashing the budget sends a message, but I want to make sure it's the right message.
I think since Ken is here and it's his department, it's only fair to give him an opportunity to speak to this. So Ken?
Okay, thank you and good evening. I know that in the for last year and for this proposed budget for 2023, we had put in an amount of 40 grand for programming. I am, and while we wanted to do that with the intent of trying to attract some significant speakers that we could bring to the county community to hear and to discuss and to foster interaction. And this was the idea that I had in terms of proposing that amount. That said, I am willing to sort of abide by the wisdom and rationale of the legislature in terms of slashing this budget. First of all, I know that there are a great many pressing needs for the county. And I think in light of that, I think I would be willing to, accept $20,000 as an OTR, and we will work with what we have to work with. to address Annie's question or request statement about doing some, more diverse palette of programming. One of the things that we are working on right now, and which will, we certainly would be able to fund with that proposed budget, is a civic educational civic engagement voter registration initiative. And we have been working with a group of folks from a number of nonprofit and human services organizations since July, launched an initial program on this 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and with more programming to come. So that, I think that's sort of reflective of an area in which we are, in which we've got a number of folks who are really committed to making this happen, to engage the public, to empower the public about what it is to be a citizen, what power people have as citizens, and one way by which one exercises that power is through the vote. And so we've got a really solid group of folks. We're doing this in conjunction with the Human Rights Commission's Education Committee. And so that is one of the things that we will certainly be offering. And we will be doing those programs. We're doing them on a monthly basis through the end of this year. Afterwards, in 2023, we will be doing these once a quarter. So to get to the issue at hand, as I said, I am willing to work with a $20,000 OTR, and we can make that work, and we can provide a kind of quality and diversity of programming with that amount. We'll work with what we have.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate your willingness to cooperate, so to speak. Does anybody else have anything to say about this? Okay, let's vote.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison, Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
13 ayes. Motion passes.
Okay, let me ask you all a question. Shauna has a multi-year for the two deputies. I know that this is important to her and she will not be here on Thursday. Can we be crisp here and consider this? Or is this going to be another marathon discussion?
I'll be crisp. I promise. If I say anything.
Let's try. Okay, Shauna, I'm doing this for you.
Thanks, Deb.
Just
So
out-
I want to bring this back.
Mike wants to
I
point
just want to
something
make
out.
a point. Just talk about being crisp here, and I agree with you. Some of us have been here since at least 3 o'clock. With
2:00,
2
actually.
o'clock, you're right. So please, if we're going to do this, let's try to keep it down.
Yeah, I mean, crisp to the point of burnt, please.
Let's just
Thank
vote.
you, Shauna.
Let's just vote on it.
Okay, so yeah, there's not much that that I can tell you now with COVID brain that I didn't tell you the other night with COVID brain. Derek and Jen, I believe, sent some information, and I think we've been able to answer some questions from legislators as far as why these positions are needed. So, Jen, do you have anything to comment?
No, that I can answer any questions. Like I said, I think one of my main points as an operational component is I think a lot of people just think we are out there just filling our patrol zones, which 75% of the time we can't even do that. But we also, I think, forget that we have to provide staffing 16 hours a day for the airport. And this is often done with our road patrol deputies to supplement the 4 part-timers, because mathematically 4 part-timers just can't fill the 16 hours a day. So I had Megan run some numbers. So far this year, we've provided around 4,500 hours of staffing at the airport. 3,000 have been filled by our part-timers, which means 1,500 hours have been filled by our road patrol deputies. 800 of that, which is done by overtime. So I know overtime savings was one component. Obviously, with more road patrol staffing, the more opportunity we have to provide security for the airport on regular patrol versus overtime, which is savings for our budget, but also for the airport's budget, as well as transportations fall under the sheriff's department, not just for our agency, for all law enforcement agencies when the county, if they're in our custody. So we have a lot of additional duties outside of just road patrol, filling our patrol zones, which, like I said, we can't do 75% of the time. We only have staffing to fill 3 patrol zones. I just want to keep it brisk too. I have a few access to a few slides, but if it's not necessary, I won't pull them up.
So slides or no slides, people?
I think the other thing that just came out the other day with the mayor's budget is that they have recently cut 7 of their IPD. And so I know we talked about before how the sheriff's department's been a backup, but I can imagine in reducing the staff by 7, we're going to see even more need for the backup.
Okay, this has been moved. I need a second. Greg Mezzi seconds. Thank you, Greg. Okay. Is there more discussion? I know Rich raised his hand.
Yes, thank you, Deborah. I had a chance to talk with the sheriff at some length today on this OTR. I think there's some real value in considering this, not just the impact on overtime expense, but also in the overall capability of the sheriff's department. And as Shauna indicated, in light of making sure that our sheriff's department can support the other police agencies when needed throughout the county. So I will support.
Thank you, Rich. Veronica?
I just wanted to point out that we are already, I guess, recommending OTRs for 1, 2, 3 other deputy sheriffs and a clerk to do work that otherwise would be done by deputy sheriffs. And frankly, I don't understand the thing about the professional services standards division. I think that might just be like moving money around for people that are already there. Anyway, we're already hiring a bunch of extra deputies to do, and I know they're all for specialized things, but unless I am misunderstanding, those are not to do more work. One of them is to staff the human services building, but the other 3 are just to cover in different ways, like what they're already doing. So hiring yet 2 more on top of that, 5 more deputy, so 5 more like people doing the work of deputy sheriffs seems like too much.
I think that there might be some misunderstanding about what those additional deputies are, because my understanding is that had a lot to do with the reimagining public safety initiatives. But I don't know if Lisa wants to address this. I know Jen's got her hand up.
So I think we are going back to attempt to change the deputy that was in the sheriff's originally for an OTR to staff the human services building through the resolution that was just passed because
we're outsourcing that.
Yeah, we're outsourcing that. There was a deputy that was going to be dedicated to the mental health alternative response model. There were 2 sergeants that were proposed with one-time funds for the professional standards division that I recommended bringing into target, because I think if that's our goal, then we need to start staggering doing that. And then there was one final civil division staff person that would be covered with that grant fund for the domestic terror state funding. So yes, to your point, there are a number of additional staff that are already included in over targets, and I think I just hit on most of them.
Okay, Jen, do you want to have something to contribute to this? And then Lee has a comment.
No, I think Lisa explained it. The additional staff, all of that has been reimagining public safety recommendations that were worked on with Deanna Carruthers at the time, as well as the county administrator. So they weren't any additional deputies assigned to road patrol functions. They were all to support the reimagining recommendations.
Thank you. Lee?
Essentially, Jen just said it all. We have put a significant investment into the sheriff's office, but it is in support of the reimagining work, mental health support, and civil work due to the changes in the gun laws. We haven't put one more deputy on the roads to support to protect our rural residents. And I know, and I'm concerned with the amount of stress that our people are under out there on the road, trying to keep up with the call volumes and the shortages in staff, and trying to keep to a minimum staffing level that I don't think is practical, 3 or 4 cars at the heaviest times of the day. And this is something that is extremely important to the rural residents. We're having a tough time up there.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. That's a good insight. All right, anybody else? Let's vote.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Henry Grandison, Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
No.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
12 ayes and 1 no, motion passes.
Okay, everyone, thank you for your forbearance. Dan?
I just want to remind everyone that there is likely to be one other OTR in our next session, which is an attempt to change the levy, using fund balance. And I just wanted to make sure you remember that's also going to be on there. It can be done later on. I think it's better if we do it at the budget meeting, but just want to make sure everyone knew. And Norma, I'm going to need to huddle with you in the next day or two before that meeting to help me verify some numbers. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to alert you to wear your best clothes and come in a great mood, because we're going to have a guest chair for the next meeting. I will be out of town. Mr. Shirtliff will be your host.
We all wear ties?
Ties and tails, Dan.